The Night Land Audiobook, William Hope Hodgson's part. To Chapter 5, Into the Night Land. Now, after that destruction which had come upon the 10,000, and the fresh assurance that was upon us of the roar of the night land, it may be known that there could be no more thought to succor, though in truth, those youths that went now upon the road where the silent ones walk were far beyond our aid. Yet might it be thought that we should have signaled to them, calling by the home call, which was that great voice which went forth from the machine above the sealed base of the mighty pyramid. But this we might not do, for then we gave signal to the monsters of that land, that some were even now abroad from the pyramid, yet we could no more than hope that the evil forces had no wotting of them. For in verity, none might ever know the knowledge or the ignorance which those powers did possess. Yet, it must be kept to the mind that we knew even then there was an influence abroad in the land, strange and quiet, so that the instruments did not more than make record of it. And as I have surely set down ere now, we had belief that it did come from that house of silence, afar in the night land, upon that low hill to the north of the great road. And many among the monstruacans feared that it was directed upon the youths, but of this there could be no surety, and we could but wait and watch. Now, about this time those poor youths did draw nigh to that part of the road where the silent ones walk, where it turned more swiftly to the north, and they to be now at no mighty distance from that grim and horrid house. And presently we knew that the influence had a greater power in the land, and I had an assuredness that it came from the house. Yet no certain proof was this. But I set out my feelings to the master monstruacan, and he had trust in them and in my power. Moreover, he also had belief within himself that some secret power came out from the house of silence. And some talk there was at times that we send the home call into the night, to give warning to the youths of our knowledge and our fear, and to entreat them to make a safe endeavour, or to return swiftly. Yet was this an error, and refused by the master monstruacan. For it was not meet that we put the souls of those youths in peril, until such time as we had certainty that they should be lost if we did not bestir ourselves. For indeed, this home call was as a mighty voice, calling over the world, and did have so exceeding a noise, that it had immediately told all that land, how that some were yet abroad from the great redoubt. And here will I set down how that the home call had no use in those ages, but had been a call in the olden time when yet the great flying ships went abroad over the world. And there passed now a day and a night, and in all that time there ceased not great multitudes to peer forth into the night land at the youths. For it was known concerning the influence, and all felt that the youths did draw nigh very speedy to their fate, and much talk there was, and many things said, and much foolish speech, and kind intent, but no courage to go forth to make further attempt to rescue, which in truth calls not for great astonishment, as I have surely writ or oft thought. And in this place let me set down that the land was, as it might be said, waked and unquiet, and a sense of things passing in the night, and of horrid watchfulness, and there were, at this time and at that, low roars that went across the land. And if I have not told the same before this time, it must be set to count against me and my telling. For indeed, I should have writ it down before this place. Yet is the difficulty of my task great, and all must bear with me, and entreat for me that I have courage, so that I may come at last to strength and wisdom, to tell all that I did see. Now in the space of this day and night, it was known that the youths had not slept, neither had they eaten save once, as they who had the watch through the great spyglass did affirm, but they to hasten alway at a woeful speed towards the north, along that great dismal road, so that presently they must cease, or slay themselves with their endeavor. And all this did give surety to our fears that they were under a spell from that horrid house afar in the land. And we had an assurance that this thing was, for presently there came a monstruacan to the master, monstruacan to report that there had come sudden a mighty influence into the land, and in the same moment as it might be, I spied through the great spyglass, and did see those youths break swiftly from the road where the silent ones walk, and begin to run very swift that they might come quickly to the house of silence. Then did the Master Monstruaken hesitate not, but did send the home call across the world, aye, even to those poor doomed ones that hastened, unknowing, to the terror which did compel them. And immediately upon the sound, the Master did send a message to the natural eye, in set language, and made warning that they suffered themselves to be drawn to their destruction by a force that came from within the House of Silence. And he besought them to put forth the strength of their spear, and do battle for their souls. And if they could in no wise compass a victory over that which drew them onwards, to slay themselves quickly, ere they went into that house to the horror of utter destruction. And in all the pyramid was there a great silence, for the bell-lowing of the home call bred a quietness because of that which it did portend, and it was swiftly known by the millions that the Master Monstruaken did plead for the souls of the youths. And there went forth, unknowingly, a counterforce from the mighty pyramid, by reason of the prayers and soul wishings of the countless millions. And the counterforce was plain to my inward hearing, and beat all the ether of the world into a surge of supplication, so that it stunned my spirit with the great power of it. And it seemed to me, as it were, that there was a vast spiritual noise in all the night, and I spied tremblingly through the great spyglass, and lo, the youths did cease from their swift running, and were come together in a crowd, and had a seeming to be confused, as might some who have waked suddenly from sleep, to find that they walked in their sleep, and had come to a strange place. Then came there a great roar from all the millions that spied from the embrasures. From nigh 500,000 embrasures they did look, and I count not the great view tables. And the shouting rose up like to the roaring of a mighty wind of triumph. Yet was it over early to sound for victory. For the counterforce which came from the intensity of so many wills blent to one intent was break, and the evil force which came forth out of the house did draw the youths again, so that they heeded not their salvation, but turned once again to their running. And the mighty pyramid was full of a shaken silence, and immediately of lamentation and sorrow and horror at this thing. But in that moment there did happen a fresh wonder, for there grew suddenly before those poor youths billows of mist, as it had been of pure white fire shining very chill, yet giving no light upon them. And the mist of cold fire stayed their way, so that we had knowledge that there fought for the souls of them one of those sweet powers of goodness, which we had belief did strive to ward our spirits at all times from those forces of evil and destruction. And all the millions saw the thing, but some with a great clearness, and many doubtful, yet were all advanced more in spiritual sight and hearing than the normal peoples of this age. But of them all, none had the night hearing, to know a soul having speech in the ether half across the world. Yet, as I have said, some there had been aforetime who were thus given the hearing, even as was I. And there came a Monstruaken to the Master. Monstruaken to make report that the influence had ceased to work upon the instruments. And by this thing we knew that in verity, the force which proceeded out from the House of Silence was cut off from us, and from those youths, and we had assurance that there fought a very mighty power for the salvation of the souls of the youths. And all the peoples were silent, save for an underbreath of wonder and talk, for all were utter stirred with hope and fear, perceiving that the youths had some chance given unto them to return. And whilst the youths yet wavered in their minds, as I perceived with the great spyglass, and the knowledge of my soul, and of my natural wit, lo, the Master Monstruaken sent once more the great voice of the home call abroad into the land, and immediately besought those youths for the sake of their souls, and the love which their mothers had for them, to come swiftly homewards, whilst they had yet this great power to shield them, and allow them sweet sanity. And I thought that some did look towards the pyramid, as that they answered to the mighty voice of the home call, and did read the message which the Master Monstruaken made to them. But in a moment they faced about, seeming to have a good obedience to one who did always lead, and of whom I had inquired, and found to be one named Ashoff, who was a great athlete of the 900th city. And this same Ashoff, out of the boldness and bravery of his heart, did make, unwitting, to destroy the souls of them all. For he went forward and leapt into the billows of the bright shining fire that made a barrier in the way of their destruction. And immediately the fire ceased from its shining, and gave way and sank and grew to a nothingness. And Asaph of the 900th city began again to run towards the house of silence, and all they that were with him did follow faithfully, and ceased not to run. And they came presently to the low hill whereon was that horrid house, and they went up swiftly. And they were 250, and wholesome of heart, and innocent, save for a natural waywardness of spirit. And they came to the great open doorway that hath been open since the beginning, and through which the cold stead, fast light, and the inscrutable silence of evil hath made forever a silence that may be felt in all the land. And the great, uncased windows gave out the silence and the light, aye, the utter silence of an unholy desolation. And Asaph ran in through the great doorway of silence, and they that followed, and they nevermore came out, or were seen by any human. And it must be known that the mothers and the fathers of those youths looked out into the night land, and saw that thing which came to pass. And all the people were silent. But some said presently that the youths would come forth again. Yet the people knew in their hearts that the young men had gone into destruction. For in truth, there was that in the night which spoke horror to the souls of all, and a sudden utter quiet in all the land. But unto me, that had the night hearing, there came a great fear of that which might be whispered into my spirit, out of the quietness of the night, of the agony of those young men. Yet there came no sound to the hearing of the soul, neither then nor in all the years that were to come. For in verity had those youths passed into a silence of which the heart cannot think. And here will I tell how that the strange quiet which did fill all the land, seeming to brood within the night, was horrid beyond all the roarings which had passed over the darkness in the time that went before, so that it had given my spirit some rest and assurance to hear but the far-echoing low thunder of the great laughter, or the whining which was used at times to sound in the night from the southeast. Where were the silver fire holes that opened before the thing that nods, or the baying of the hounds, or the roaring of the giants, or any of those dreadful sounds that did often pass through the night? For they could not have offended me, as did that time of silence. And so shall you judge how dreadful was that quiet, which did hold so much of horror. And surely it will be known that none had thinkings now, even in idle speech, that any should have power to succor the peoples of the lesser redoubt. Neither, as I have said, had any the knowledge of the place where it did stand. And so was it made plain that those peoples must suffer, and come unhelped and alone to their end, which was a sad and dreadful thought to any. Yet had those within the great pyramid come already to much sorrow and calamity, because that some had made attempt in this matter, and there had been for gain only failure, and the sorrow of mothers, and the loneliness of wives and of kin. And now this dread horror upon us, which concerned those lost youths. Now, as may be conceived, this sure knowledge that we might give no succor to the people of the lesser redoubt weighed heavy upon my heart, for I had, maybe with foolishness, held vague hopes and wonders concerning our power to make expeditions secretly into the night, to discover that lesser pyramid, and rescue those poor thousands. And above all, as may be thought, had I the thought of that sweet moment in which I should step forward out of the night and all mystery and terror, and put forth mine arms to Nani, saying, I am that one. And knowing in my soul that she that had been mine in that bygone eternity should surely know me upon the instant, and call out swiftly, and come swiftly, and be again to me in that age, even as she had been in this. And to think upon it, and to know that this thing should never be, but that, even in that moment of thought, she that had been mine in these olden days of sweetness might be even then suffering horror in the power of some foul monster, was like a kind of madness, so that nearly I could seize the discos and run forth unprepared into the evil and terror of the night land, that I should make one attempt to come to that place where she abode, or else to cast off my life in the attempt. And oft did I call to Nani, and always I sent the master word beating through the night, that she might have assurance that it was indeed I that did speak unto her spirit, and no foul thing or monster, spelling evil and lies unto her. And oft did I make to instruct her that never should she be tempted forth from the shelter of that redoubt in which she did live, by any message out of the night, but always to await the master word, and moreover to have a sure knowledge that none that was her friend would ever seek to entice her in to the night. And this way and that way would I speak with Nani, sending my words silently with my brain elements. Yet was it doleful and weariful, and dreadful always to have speech into the dark, and never to hear the answering beat of the master word, and the sweet, faint voice whispering within my soul. Yet once and again would I have knowledge that the ether did thrill about me weakly, and to mine inward hearing it would seem that the master word did beat faintly in the night. And thereafter would my heart have a little comfort, in that I had assurance, of a kind, that the love maid of my memory dreams did still live. And constant, I put forth my soul to hark, so that my health failed me with the effort of my harking, and I would chide my being that I had not a wiser control, and so make a fight to do sanely. Yet, day by day, did my heart grow more weary and restless, for indeed it did seem that life was but a very little matter, against so great a loss as my heart did feel to suffer. And oft, at this time and that, did there come a voice speaking plainly out of the night, and did purport to be the voice of Nani. But ever I did say the master word unto the voice, and the voice had no power by which it could make the one and swear. Yet I jeered not at the voice, to show contempt of its failing to bewit me, but let the matter bide. And the voice would be silent a time, and again would make a calling unto me, but never did I make speech with it, for therein lies the danger to the soul, but always did speak the master word to its silent ching, and thereafter would shut the thing from my memory, and think only upon sweet and holy matters, as it might be truth and courage, but more often of Nani, which was both sweet and holy to my spirit, and heart, and being. And so it was, as I have set down, there were monsters without in the night that did torment me, having, it may be, intent to lure me unto destruction. Or indeed it doth chance that they had no hope but to plague me with malice. And, as may be thought, all this considering of my trouble, and the giving of my strength unto Nani through the night of the world, that she might have comfort and help, did work upon me, so that I grew thin, plainly to the eye of those that loved me. And the master Monstruakin, he that did love me as I were his son, chid me gently, and had wise speech with me, so that I but loved him the more, yet without having gain of health. For my heart destroyed me, as it doth if love be held back and made always to weep. And it may be thought strange that my mother and my fath did not talk also with me, but I had neither mother nor father those many years, and this thing I should have set down early, so that none should waste thought pondering to no end. But the blame is to my telling. Now concerning my love trouble there did happen a certain thing which gave me to decide. For one night I waked from a sore troubled sleep, and it did seem that Nani did call my name, mine olden love name, and in a voice of utter anguish and with beseeching. And I sat up in the bed, and sent the master word into the night with my brain elements, and presently all about me there was the solemn beat of the master word, answering, but weak and gone faint, that scarce I might hear it. And I called again with my brain elements unto Nani, that was Murdath, and spoke to give her assurance, and to haste to tell unto me that which was so wrong and pitiful with her. And who shall be amazed that I was shaken with the eagerness of my spirit, in that it was so long since Nani had spoken clear within my soul, and now behold, her voice. Yet, though I did call many a time unto the everlasting night, there came no more the voice of Nani, speaking strangely within my spirit, but only at times a weak thrilling of the ether about me. And at the last I grew maddened with the sorrow of this thing, and the sense and knowledge of harm about the maid, and I stood upright upon my feet, and I raised my hands, and gave word and honor unto Nani through all the blackness of the night, that I would no more abide within the mighty Piram hid to my safety, whilst she that had been mine own through eternity came to horror and destruction by the beasts and evil powers of that dark world. And I gave the word with my brain elements and bade her to be of heart. For that, until I died, I would seek her. But out of the darkness there came naught but the silence. Then I clothed me swiftly and went up quickly to the tower of observation, that I might speak instant with the master Monstruaken. For my heart burned in me to intention, and to be doing speedily that which I had set upon myself to do. And I came to the master Monstruaken, and told all to him, and how that I did mean no more to suffer in quiet and to no end, but to make adventure into the Night Land, that I find nani, or perchance find a swift peace from this my long troubling. Now, when the master Monstruaken heard that which I had to say, it sat heavily upon him, and he besought me long and many times that I refrain from this thing, for that none might achieve so great a task, but that I should be lost in my youth before many days were gone by. Yet to all his speech I said naught, save that this thing was laid upon me, and even as I had promised, so should I make to act. And in the ending, the master Monstruaken perceived that I was set to this thing, and not to be moved. And he did put it to me how that I had grown to leanness, with so much troubling, and that I should have wisdom to wait a while, that I put on my full strength. But even as I was, so would I go, and this I told to him gently, and showed how that the thing was meet and helpful to the safety of my soul, for that my strength was still in me. Yet was I sweeter in spirit, because that I stood lean and pure, and much poor dross and littleness had been burned from me, so that fear was not in me, and all do I lay to the count of my love, which doth purify and make sweet and fearless the human heart. And because I was even as I have said, so was I the less in trouble of the forces of evil. For long and sore had been my preparation of spirit, and I wot that none had ever gone forth into the darkness, so long withholden from that which doth weaken and taint the spirit. And here let me set down how that the 3 days of preparation, which were proper to those that willed to go forth into the Night Land, had for their chief aim the cleansing of the spirit, so that the powers of evil did have a less ableness to harm. But also it was, as I have said, that none should go forth in ignorance of the full dreadfulness of all that held the night. For it was at the preparation that there was made known certain horrors that were not told unto the young, and of horrid mutilations, and of abasements of the soul, that did shake the heart with fear, if but they were whispered into the hearing. And these things were not set down in any book that might be lightly come by, but were warded and safe locked by the master of the preparation, in the room of preparation. And indeed, when I did hear that which presently I was to hear, I had wonder in my heart that ever any went out into the Night Land, or that ever the room of preparation should have other than students that meant not to go forth, but only to achieve some knowledge of that which hath been done, and mayhaps shall be once again. Yet, in verity, is this but the way of the human heart, and hath always been, and will be so in all the years, forever. For to adventure is the lust of youth, and to leave safety is the natural waywardness of the spirit. And who shall reprove or regret? For it were sorrowful that this spirit of man should cease. Yet must it not be thought that I do uphold fightings to the death or to mutilation, between man and man, but rather do sorrow upon this thought. Now, when the morrow came, if thus I shall speak of that which was outwardly even as the night, though changing alway within the mighty pyramid, I went unto the room of preparation, and the door was closed upon me, and I underwent the full preparation, that I might have full power and aid to come to success through all the terror of the Night Land. And 3 days and 3 nights did I abide within the room of preparation, and upon the 4th day was mine armor brought unto me. And the master of the preparation stood away from me, silent and with sorrow upon his face, but touching me not, neither coming anigh to aid me, nor having any speech with me, for none might crowd upon me or cause me to answer. And presently was I clad with the grey armor, and below the armor a close-knit suit of special shaping and texture, to have the shape of the armor, and that I might not die by the cold of the Night Land. And I placed upon me a scrip of food and drink, that might keep the life within me for a great time, by reason of its preparation. And this lay ready to me, with the armor, and was stitched about with the mark of honor, so that I knew loving women thus to speed me. And when all was done and made ready, I took up the discos and bowed in silence to the master of the preparation. And he went towards the door and opened it, and signaled that the people stand back, so that I might go forth untouched. And the people stood back, for many had crowded to the door of the room of preparation, so that I knew how that my story must be to the heart of all, in all the cities of the great redoubt. For to come unbidden, anigh that door was against the lesser law, and that any erred in this matter betokened much. And I went out through the door, and there was a mighty lane of people unto the great lift. And about the great lift, as I went downwards, did the countless millions stand, and all in a great silence, but having dear sympathy in their souls, yet loyal unto my safety, in that none in all the mighty pyramid did make speech unto me or call out aught. And as I went down, ward through the miles low, all the ether of the world seemed to be surged with the silent prayers and speedings of those quiet multitudes. And I came at last unto the great gate, and behold the dear Master Monstruaken did stand in full armor, and with the discos to do me honor, with the full watch, as I went forth. And I looked at him quietly, and he looked unto me, and I bent my head to show respect. And he made silent salute with the discos, and afterwards I went onwards towards the great gateway. And they made dim the lights in the great causeway, that there should no glare go forth into the land when the gate was opened. And behold, they opened not the lesser gate in the greater for me, but did honor my journey, in that they swung wide the great gate itself, through which a monstrous army might pass. And there was an utter silence all about the gate, and in the hushed light the 2,000 that made the full watch held up each the discos, silently to make salute. And humbly I held up the discos reversed, and went forward into the dark. Chapter 6. The way that I did go. Now I went forward for a space, and took heed not to look backwards, but to be strong of heart and spirit, for that which did lie before me had need of all my manhood and courage of soul, that I come to the succor of that maid afar in the darkness of the world, or meet my death proper, as it might need to be. And thus did I go forward steadfastly, and conscious in all my being of the emotions of that parting from my mighty home, and of the tenderness and wiseness that did underlie so much curbed rule and guidance. And my heart was warm towards the Master Monstruaken for that great honor, that he should come downward in our more to make one with the full watch, that he might uphold me to a lofty spirit at the moment of my going. And all that time as I went forward, was the ether of the night about me, in tumult with the thoughts and blind wishings of the great millions I had but now left to my back. And, presently, as I steadied somewhat upon my emotions, I was conscious of the exceeding coldness of the night air, and of the different taste of it upon my lungs and in the mouth. And it had, as it were, a wondrous keen sharping upon my palate, and did fill the lips more in the breathing, so that it may be supposed it had more body within it than that air which did fill the plateau of the 1,000th city where was my home. For the air of every city was of difference, and the greater between one that was afar up and another nigh to the earth, as may be thought, so that many peoples did migrate unto that level which gave them best healthfulness, but under rule and with a guidance of quantities, and not all that were lacking of health, for some are ever contrary. And here let me set down that, within the deeps of the fields, there was air utter varied and wonderful, that might charm one here, and likewise sorrow another that were happier elsewhere, so that all might have suiting, did they but wander, and have reason to companion them. And thus did I go forward, full of new thoughts and olden memories, and fresh breaking wonders, neither forgetting something of doubts and fears more than a little. And again was it most cunning strange to be out there in the night land, though not yet afar, where often had my fancies and imaginings led me. Yet until that time never had I touched foot, in all that life, upon the outward earth. And this must be a one-drouse, quaint-seeming thought to those of this present day. And so came I at last, nigh to the circle that did go about the redoubt. And presently I was come to it, and something as tarnished was I that it had no great bigness. For I had looked for this by reasoning, having always a mind to picture things as they might be truly, and hence coming sometimes to the one dare of a great truth, but odd whiles to errors that others had not made. And now, lo, I did find it but a small clear tube that had not 2 inches of thickness, yet sent out a very bright and strong light, so that it seemed greater to the eye, did one but behold from a distance. And this is but a little thing to set to the telling, yet may it give something of the newness of all. And moreover, shall you have memory with me in this place, how that oft had I seen the ings and beast monsters peer over that same little tube of light, their faces coming forward out of the night. And pride had we taken of ourselves to perceive those monsters which had most of ugliness and horror to commend them, for thereby did we stand to have won the game of watching, until such time as a more fearsome brute be discovered. And so went the play. Yet with ever, it doth seem to me now, something of a half-known shudder to the heart, and a child's rejoicing unknowingly in that safety which had power to make light the seeming of such matters. And this also is but a small matter, yet doth it bear upon the inwardness of my feelings. For the memories of all my youth and of the many beasts that I had seen to peer across the light did come upwards in my mind in that moment, so that I did give back a little, unthinking of what I did, but having upon me the sudden imagining of that which might come out of the dark beyond. And I to stand a little moment, and presently had grown free in my heart to have courage of farewell, and so did turn me at last to the viewing of that wondrous home of the last millions of this world. And the sight was an astonishment and an uplifting, that indeed there was so mighty a thing in all the earth, and well might be that there were monsters and forces gathered together about that hill of life, out of all the darkness of the world. For the thing was as a mighty mountain that went up measureless into the night, and spread out upon the earth to the right and to the left of me, so that it did seem to hold all the world with its might. And in the nearer slope were there 300,000 great embrasures, as well I did know, there being in all the 4 sides of the redoubt 1,200,000 embras, eures, as was set out in the books of the schools, and upon the cover of atlas books, as they still quaintly to be called, and many another place, as might be supposed. And 1/2 mile upward was the lowest tier of those great window places, and above that countless other tiers, and a great light came out from them into the darkness, so that I looked up into the night many miles, and yet did see them in shining rows, and did make separate each embrasure from its fellow for a great way. But there grew yet more above in the mighty distance, so that they were lost in the upward space of the night, and did seem to me presently but as a constant glimmering fire, that did shape a shining peak into the blackness of the heavens, dwindling into the utmost height, and thus was that everlasting monument. Then did it come to me that those little things, which I did see to cluster against the embrasures, were in truth the countless millions of the mighty redoubt, and this I could make out with some plainness in those lower embrasures, which were the more near to me than they above, for the peoples were set against the light within, yet were as small things like unto insects, in that distance, and within so huge a bulk. And I knew that they looked out upon me, and did watch through their spyglasses, and I sent my gaze upwards again, along that great slope of grey metal, aye, upward again to where it strode glimmering into the blackness, and so at last to the little star that did crown that wonder of the world in the eternal night. And for a little I did stare towards that far light, for it came from within that tower of observation, where so lately I had spended my life, and I had knowledge within my heart that the dear Master Monstruaken did bend the great spyglass upon me, through which so oft had I spied, and I raised the discos unto him, in salutation and farewell, though I saw him not at all through that vast space. And my heart was very full, yet my soul but the stronger for it. And then, behold, I was aware of a murmur in the night, coming to me, dim and from afar off, and I saw the little shapes of the peoples in the lower embrasures in constant movement, And I knew upon the instant that the multitudes did take that salute unto themselves, and cried out and waved to me their farewells, or to come back, as may be. And indeed, I was but a lonesome person looking up at that great mountain of metal and life. And I knew that I had danger to realize my plight, and I stayed no more, but did raise the discourse, reversed, as was but meet from one young man unto all the millions. And I looked swiftly upward through those 8 great miles of night, unto that final light, which did shine in the black heavens, so that my friend should know that I thought of him that was beyond my sight, in that last moment. And it may be that the invisible millions that were far up in the night, in the upper cities, did take that also to be a meaning of farewell to themselves, for there came down out of the monstrous height a far faint murmur of sound, as of a vague wind-up in the night. Then did I lower the discourse, and turn me about, and I breasted strangely against the air clog, and stepped forward across the circle into the lonesomeness of the night land. And I looked no more behind, for that which was my home did weaken my heart somewhat to behold, so that I made determination that I looked not again to my back for a great while. Yet about me as I went, there was constant surging in the ether of the world, and it did tell unto me how that those, my people and kin, had continual mind of me, both in prayer and wishings, and in a perpetual watching. And the same gave to me a feeling as of being something companied. Yet in a time it came to me that this disturbance of the ether should tell to some evil force, how that I was there abroad in the land. But how to stop this thing? Who should have power? For of truth, had I been among them to make a full explaining of the danger, they had been yet powerless to cease. For but to have such great multitudes a think upon one matter, was to set a disturbance about, as should be most clear to all. Now, at the beginning, I did walk outwards into the night land, somewhat blindly and without sure direction, being intent only to put a good space to my back, that I might cure somewhat the ache which did weaken my heart at the first. But in a while I ceased somewhat from my over-swiftness, and did put thought to my going. And I came quickly to reason that I should try a new way through the land, for it might be that there was an over-watchfulness in that part which had been trod by the youths. And I began therewith to set this thought to the practice, and went not direct towards the north, but to the north and west, and so in the end to mean to circle around to the back of the northwest watcher, and thence to the north of the plain of blue fire, and afterwards, as might be, have a true and straight way to the north, and by this planning come a long way clear of that house of silence, which did put more fear upon me than all else that was horrid in the land. Yet, as all will see, this made to me a greater journey, though in verity it were better to go slowly and win to success than to make a greater haste towards destruction, which was, indeed, surely to be mine end, did I not go warily. Now it may be thought upon with wonder that I did go so as suredly to the north, but I went this wise, part by an inward knowing, and part come upon by much latter studying within the pyramid of olden books, and by reasoning upon all things that I did observe, that had seemings of verity in them. And because of this constant searching upon one matter, I had come, but a while back, upon a little book of metal, very strange and ancient, that had lain forgot in a hid place in the great library through 100,000 years, maybe or less or more, for all that I had knowing. And much that was writ in the book was common knowledge, and set mostly to the count of fairy tales and such like, even as we of this our age take not over surely any belief in myths of olden times. Yet had I always much liking for such matters, perceiving behind that outer shell which did win always so much unbelief, the kernel of ancient truths and happenings. And thus was it, concerning this little book which I had made discovery of, for it told again that which oft I had heard, even as we in this age read of the deluge, how that once, in a time monstrous far back from that, but utter future to this age of ours, the world did break upwards in a vast earthquaking, that did rend the world for 1,000 miles. And there came a mighty chasm, so deep that none might see the bottom thereof, and there rushed therein an ocean, and the earth did burst afresh with a sound that did shake all the cities of the world. And a great mist lay upon the earth for many days, and there was a mighty rain. And indeed, this was just so set in certain histories of the ancient world. Also, there was made reference to it within some olden records, yet nowise to be taken with a serious mind, to the seeming of the peoples of the mighty pyramid, but only as a quaint study for the students, and to be set out in little tales that did entertain the nurseries, or, as it might be, wise men and the general. Yet there was this, about that small and peculiar book, that it did speak of many of these things, as it were that it did quote from the pens of those that did have actual witness, and set all out with a strange gravity, that did cause one to consider it as meant to be indeed the tellings of truth, and to seem this wise to have great difference from all that I had read before concerning those matters. And there was, further, a part in the ending of the book that did seem to be writ of a time that came afterwards, maybe 100,000 and maybe 1,000,000 years, but who shall say? And therein it did tell of an huge and mighty valley that did come out of the west, towards the southeast, and made turning thence northwards, and was 1,000 miles both ways, and the sides thereof were 100 miles deep, and the sun did stand in the western end, and made a red gloom for 1,000 miles, and in the bottom there were great seas, and beasts strange and awesome and very plentiful. Now this, as may be seen, was as the talk of romance, yet did I turn my wits to their natural end, and made thus plain of it. For in truth I to have something of belief, and it to seem to me that in a bygone eternity, when the world was yet light, as in my heart I knew to have been indeed a thing of verity, there was a great and wondrous earthquake, and the earthquake did burst the world up, along a certain great curve where it had weakness, and there fell into the yawning furnace of the world, one of the great oceans, and immediately made of itself steam, and so brake upwards again, and tore the earth mightily in its swift uprising. And thereafter there was a mist and confusion and rain upon the world, and indeed all very seemly put, and not to be taken as a light tale. Then, in that ending of the book, there was one that did write, having lived in a vast later age, when the sun had come anigh to his dying, and the upward earth was grown quiet and cold, and not good to live upon. And in that time the mighty chasm had been calmed by the weight of an eternity, so that it was now a most deep and wondrous valley, that did hold seas and great hills and mountains, and in it were great forests of kinds, and lands that were good and healthful, and places given over to fire, and to steamings, and sulphur clouds, so that they held poisons that had ill for man. And great beasts were there down in that far depth, that none might see ever, save by a strong spyglass. And such there were in the early world, and had now been bred in the ending by those inward forces of nature, which did make the valley a place of good warmth, so that there was, as it were, once more the primal world born to give new birth unto such olden monsters, and to others, new and peculiar to that age and circumstance. And all this, indeed, did the book give also, but constrained and difficult to take clearly to the heart, and not like to the wise plain speech of the early tellings, so that I must even set it out here in mine own speech. And it did seem to me, by my reading, that man had come at one time to a great softness of heart and spirit, through many ages of over-ease, but that the world did come to coldness and unfriendliness, by reason of the sun's slow ceasing. And there was presently, in naturalness, a race upon the earth that were hardy, and made to fight for their lives, and did perceive that the mighty valley that cut the world in twain was a place of warmth and life, and so did make to adventure their bodies down that wondrous height, and were many ages coming safe to the bottom, but did find safe places in the downward way where they built them houses, and made to live, and begot them children, and these grew up to that life of constant and great climbings, and of hard workings upon the road, which was the one intent of that people, so that the book did speak of them always as the road makers. And thus did they make downwards through the long years and the ages, and many generations did live and die, and saw not the reaching of the road down into that great vale, that lay so monstrous deep in the world. But in the end they did come there with the road, and they were very hardy, and they did fight with the monsters and slay many, and they built them many cities, through great years in the mighty valley, and did make the road from city unto city along that great valley, even unto the bight of the valley. And they found here a constant darkness and shadow, for that the sun could not make a shining around that great corner. Yet even here they ceased not to make the road, but took it around and a mighty way unto the north, passing it among strange fires and pits that burned from out of the earth. But there was presently such a power and horror of monsters and evil things in that valley of shadow, that the road makers were made to go backwards into the red light which did fill the westward valley, and came from that low sun. And they went back unto their cities, and lived there haps 100,000 years, and grew wise and cunning in all matters. And their wise people did make dealings and had experiment with those forces which are distasteful and harmful unto life. But they did this in ignorance, for all that they had much wisdom, thinking only to experiment, that they come to greater knowings. But they did open a way for those forces, and much harm and pity did come thereby, and then had all people to have regret. Yet too late. Now presently, when 100,000 years had gone, or it may be a greater space, there came slowly the utter twilight of the world, as the sun to die the more, so that presently it gave but an utter gloomy light. And there grew upon many of the peoples of the cities of the valley a strangeness and a wildness, so that strange things were done, that had been shameful to all in the light. And there were wanderings, and consortings with strange outward beings, and presently many cities were attacked by monsters that did come from the west, and there was a pandemonium. Then was an age of sorrows and fightings, and hardenings of the spirit and of the heart, for all that were of good fiber. And this did breed a determined generation, and there grew up into the world a leader, and he took all the sound millions, and did make a mighty battle upon all foulness, and upon all that did harm and trouble them. And they drove their enemies down the valley, and up the valley, and did utterly scatter and put them to flight. Then did that man call all his peoples together, and did make it plain how that the darkness grew upon the world, and that the foul and dreadful powers abroad were like to be more horrid when a greater gloom came. And he put to them that they build a mighty refuge. And the peoples did acclaim, and lo, there was built presently a great house. But the great house was not proper, and that man did take all the peoples to wander. And they came to the bight, and there was built at last that great and mighty pyramid. Now this is the sense and telling of that book, and but late had I read it, and talked somewhat of it with my dear friend, the Master Monstruaken, but not overmuch, for I had taken so sudden a mind to go, that all else had dropped from about me. Yet to us it did seem clear that there was no life in all the invisible upper world, and that surely that great road where on the silent ones did walk must be that same road which the hardy peoples of that age did make. And it did seem wise to the Master Monstruaken, and unto me, that if any should find the lesser redoubt, they must surely do so somewhere within the mighty valley. But whether the road that led into the west, where was the place of the abhumans, should bring me to it, I had no knowing, nor whether it might lie on the northward way, and I, maybe, to wander 1,000 miles wrong, if, in truth, I were not into some dreadful trouble before. And indeed, no reason of value was there to give me hope that the lesser pyramid lay either to the west, or where the road went northward beyond the House of Silence. Yet I did so feel it to be somewhere to the north, that I had made a determination to search that way for a great distance, the first, and if I could not come upon aught, then I should have sober thought that it did lie westward. But in the valley some ways, I had feeling of assurance that it must be, for it was plain that the telling of the book was sound in its bottom sense, as might be seen. For how should any live in the utter bleak and deadly chill of the silent upper world that lay 100 miles up in the night, hid and lost forever? And strange is it to think of those wondrous and mighty cliffs that girt us about, and yet were fast held from us in the dark, so that I had not known of them, save for the telling of that book, though in truth, it had been always supposed that we lived in a great deep of the world. But indeed, it was rather held in belief that we abode in the bed of some ancient sea, that did surely slope gradual away from us, and not go up abrupt and savage. And here let me make so clear as I may, that the general peoples had no clear thought upon any such matters, though there was something of it taught in the schools. Yet rather this and that of diverse conclusions, as it might be thinkings of the teachers, after much study and some ponderings. For one man, having a lack of imagining, would scoff, and another, maybe to take it very staidly, but some would build fancy upon the tellings of the records, and make foolish and fantast that which had groundings in truth. And thus is it ever. But to the most peoples of the pyramid, there was no deep convict tie-in, nor thought of any great hid world afar in the darkness, for they gave attention and belief only to that which lay to their view. Nor could a great lot come to imagine that there had been ever any other condition. And to them, it did seem right and meet that there should be strange things, and fires from the earth, and an ever-abiding night, and monsters, and matters hid and tangled much in mystery. And very content were the most of them, though some had in them the yeast of imaginings, or the pimples of fancy upon them, and to these there seemed many possibilities, though the first to read out to sanity, and the second, to expect and have speech towards much that was foolish or to no purpose. And of these vague believings of the peoples have I made hint before, and need not have much trouble to it now, save that, with the children, as is ever the way, those olden tales had much believing, and the simplicity of the wise did mate with the beliefs of the young, and between them did lie the truth. And so did I make speed towards the north, having a strong surety in my heart and mind that there were but two ways to my search. For without of the valley, afar up in the dead lonesomeness of the hidden world, was a cold that was shapen ready to death, and a lacking, as I must believe, of the sweet, needful air that yet did lie in plenty in that deep place of the earth. So that surely the mighty valley somewheres to hold that other redoubt. Yet, as I have said, I went not direct to my journey, but other, wise, for those sound reasons which I did set down a time back. Chapter 7. The Night Land. Now, as I went towards the north and west, I steered me war illy for a great while, that I come safe of that great watcher of the northwest. And as I made forward, I put thought to all matters which must concern me, so far as I had imagining to see. And first I did consider the speed that I should keep, and found presently that I did well to be moderate. For that I had before me a great and mighty journey, and indeed, who might speak knowingly of the end thereof? And another matter I did arrange, for I would make the times of my goings forward, and the times of mine eatings and sleepings all to a wise and regular fashion, that thereby I might go a great way, with the less harm to my body, so that I should be strong when the need did come for my strength. And I made in the end that I should eat and drink, at every 6th hour, and at the 18th hour sleep me until the 24th. And by this means did I eat thrice in that time, and have 6 hours of sleep. And this seemed very good to me, and I did strive always to manage thus in all my great journeying in the Night Land. Yet, as may be supposed, there were times often many when I must watch without ceasing, and leave my slum, bear unto the future. For the land was full of grim and dreadful perils, and, as doth be human, I break my rules straightway in the beginning. For I ceased not to walk for 21 hours, hiding and creeping as the need did be in those places that were like to show me unto the watcher. And when I did think upon food, it did sicken me, so that I would eat by and by as I made it within my thoughts. But when 21 hours had gone, I grew very weary and something faint, and was forced that I look about for some place where I might have rest. And in a little while I did see, away off, a small fire hole, the like of which I had passed odd times even so early. And I made to come nigh to that part, for there would be warmth from the chill of the night land, and mayhaps a place dry and convenient to my slumber. And when I came anigh, I saw that it was a cheerful place, as it might be said, amid so much gloom, for the hole was but a few paces wide, and full of a dull, glowing fire, that did bubble somewhat, and throw off a small sulphur smoke. And I sat me down, at no great way, and did place the discos on the rock to my hand. And I moved not a while, but was aweary, so that I had not the courage to eat, neither to drink, but must turn me and look back to the mighty pyramid. And in truth, though I had come a very good space, yet was I so anigh to it, that I was both cheered and put out of heart, for it did seem close upon me by reason of its greatness, so that I, who had journeyed a hard and weariful way, was shaken with the greatness of the task that was upon me. Yet was this but one side of my heart, for it was good to feel the nearness of my mighty home, and I knew that there did countless millions make watch upon me as I sat. Yet did I make no sign, for it is not meet to make a constant farewell, but to go. Yet was it very strange to be thus near, and to show such behavior as were proper to one afar from all humanity. But so it was that I ordered my ways, for it did seem proper to me. Yet was I happy to know that the dear Master Monstruaken must, time and oft, have spied upon me through the great spyglass, and mayhaps did watch me in that moment. And it grew in me that I did act weakly to hold off from mine victuals, and showed foolishness before my kind friend afar. And I did ope my scrip, and take therefrom 3 tablets, the which I chewed and did eat. For this was a strong food, treated that it had but small bulk. Yet were they not filling to the belly, and I made that I would drink well, that I might feel that something was therein. And to this end I shook from a strong and especial tube, a dust, and I caught the dust within a little cup, and the air did make an action upon that dust as it were of chemistry. And the dust did boil and make a fizzing in the cup, and rose up and filled it with a liquid that was of simple water, yet very strange to see come that way, but ordinary after a time. And in this way, as might be seen, had I such food and drink in but a little scrip, that might keep life within me for a great time. Yet was it a way of discomfort, and lacking to the mouth and to the belly, but a sufficient thing unto the need of the body, and good matter for a thankful heart, in that dark and hungry land. Now, when I had eaten, I did go over in their order, those things which I did carry. For there was, beside the discos and that scrip of food, a pouch that did contain matters various. And these I did look into, and afterward did take out a small compass that I had been give by the Master Monstruaken, so that I might find of its workings without the great redoubt. And he had said unto me, that it might be that I should pass far off into the Night Land, and lose the mighty pyramid amid so great a country, and so plentiful a darkness. Then, perchance, if that ancient principle did still lurk within the China, though turned no more to the north, but unto the pier amid, then should it guide my feet homeward out of the everlasting night, and thus have once more that ancient use which, as I do know, is common unto this age. And this was a very cunning thing to have with me, if but it held service to the earth current, and a rare thing, which the Master Monstruaken did make with his own hands and much skill and pains, from an olden one that had place within the great museum, and concerning which I have told somewhat, before this place. And I set the thing upon the ground, but it had no certain way with it, but did spin and waver constantly, and this I made to consider, and remembered that I was yet above that part where, afar in the earth did spread the greatness of the underground fields, and I was, haply, but a little way off from the crack, though a mighty way above. And it pleasured me to wonder whether the dear Master Monstruaken did behold how that I made test with the compass, for the light was good from the fire hole, and the great spyglass had a great strength. Yet had I no certainty, for, as I did know, from much watchings, there was no surety in the searching of the land by the glass, for there was oft plainness where you did think surely none should see, and anon a dull ness where might be thought that the sight went gaily. And this may be plain to all, for the wavering of the lights from the strange fires was not to be accounted to rule, but made a light here, and a darkness there, and then did change about oddly. Moreover, there were smokes and mists that did come up, wards from the earth, in this place and in that, and had some whiles a greatness, but oft were small, and did lurk low, and had no power but to confuse the sight. and presently I did put by the compass in my pouch, and made to compose myself unto sleep. But here would I now set down how that, in the end, after I had gone many days' journeyings outward from the mighty pyramid, I did indeed find it to draw the northward part of the needle unto it, and this was a comfort and a pleasure to my spirit. Moreover, if ever I did get back, as I did think, it would be a matter for great interest unto the Master Monstruaken. Yet in verity, were there other matters that should hold him more? For he was right human, as all should know. And moreover, concerning this same compass, I did find a fresh thing. For after a yet greater time, as I shall set out in a due place, if I do but remember, which doubt is ever my fear to fret me, I came a mighty way from the redoubt, and, lo, fear, ing that I might indeed lose that, my great home. In the darkness of the world, I did pull out that strange wonder of the needle, that I might have comfort by its homeward pointing. And I did discover a new power in the night, for the machine did point no more directwards unto the great redoubt, but was a point unto the westwards, so that I had knowledge that some great power afar in the darkness of the world did sway upon it. And I had a childlike wonder that this might be, in truth, that same power of the north, of which the books and my memory dreams did tell. And indeed, no doubt should there be upon this matter, yet who might not have doubt in that time, that they should perceive after an eternity, that ancient northward force swaying that small servant unto an olden obedience. And it was, as it were, a revealing unto me, how that to know within the brain is one matter, but to have knowledge within the heart is another. For I had always known concerning this northward force, but yet had not known with the true meaning of knowledge. And yet one other matter there was to cause doubt, at that moment of this new knowing. For it came to me that maybe the power of that lesser redoubt did begin to act upon the chine, even as the earth current of the great pyramid did hold yet a strong drawing upon the needle. And were this so, then did I not surely begin to stand anigh unto my journey's end. For that less power of the lesser redoubt could have no impudence to pull, save that I had come to a closeness with it. Yet, in truth, as I do now have knowledge, it was the north that drew, and I do seem to make a great telling about this little matter. But how else shall I show to you mine inward mind, and the lack of knowledge and likewise the peculiar knowings that did go to the making of that time, and the peoples thereof, which is but to say the same thing twice over. And now, as I did say, I made to compose myself for sleep. And to this end, I took a cloak matter which did cross my shoulder and hip, and wrapped it about me, and lay down there in the darkness of the night, by that strange fire hole. And I lay the discos beside me, within the cloak, for it was, indeed, my companion and friend in bitter need, so that I had pleasure to feel the strange thing anigh to me. And as I did lie there, in those moments that do drowse the soul, as it were that they do proceed as breath out of the mouth of sleep, I had a half-knowing that the ether did surge about me, and I doubt not, but that there had watched my every doing, many of the millions, and had been humanly stirred, at my commending of my spirit unto sleep, and thus did shake the ether of the world about me with their unity of sympathy. And, mayhaps, I had some little knowing of this thing, as I did pass, drowsy, into slumber, and it is surely like that I slept the better for it. Moreover, I was wondrous tired and worn, and thus did sleep very strong and heavy. Yet I mind me that my last dim thinkings were upon that sweet maid I did go to find, and in slumber did I have speech with her in dreams, and a strange happiness about me, and all seeming to be touched by fairy light, and freed from the sorrow of life. And it was from a sweet and lovely sleeping, such as this, that I was waked suddenly by a great and mighty sound, and I came instant to a possessing of my senses, and I knew that the mighty voice of the home call did go howling across the night. And, swift and silent, I slid the cloak from about me, and took the haft of that wondrous discos into mine hand. And I did look towards the pyramid quickly for a message, for I had a sure knowledge that there had a great need arisen, and that some terror came towards me out of the dark. Else they had never waked all the Night Land to a knowing that an human was abroad out of the mighty refuge. And even as I did peer towards the great redoubt, I could not abide to keep my gaze entire that way, but did take a large and fearful look all about me, yet could make to see nothing, and so did stare, eager and anxious, afar into the upper black ness of the night, where did shine that final light of the tower of observation, and the same while crouched and holding the discos, and making to glance across my shoulders, and to watch for the message, and all in the same moment. And then, afar upwards in the prodigious height, I did see the great, and bright and quick darting flashes of a strange green fire, and did know that they spelled to me in the set speech a swift warning that a grey monster, that was a great grey man, had made scent of me in the dark, and was even in that moment of time, crawling towards me through the low moss bushes that lay off beyond the fire hole to my back. And the message was sharp, and bade me to leap into the bushes unto my left, and to hide there, so that I might chance to take the thing to an advantage. And, as may be thought, they had scarce flashed the tale unto me, but I was gone in among the shadows of a clump of the moss bush that did grow anigh, and I sweat with a strange roar and a cold and excited shaking of the heart, yet was my spirit set strong to conquer. And lo, as I did crouch there hidden, I saw something come very quiet out of the bushes that did grow beyond the fire hole, and it was great, and crept, and was no ways colored but by grayness in all its parts, and the glare from the fire hole did seem to trouble it, so that it looked laying its head to the ground, and spying along the earth in a strange and brutish fashion, that it might oversee the glare of the fire hole, yet I doubt that it saw beyond the fire with plainness, for in a moment it crept swift in among the bushes again, and came out towards the edge of the fire hole in another place, and this it did thrice unto my left, and thrice unto my right, and every time did lay its head to the earth and spy along, and did hunch its shoulders, and thrust forward the jaw horridly and turn the neck, as a very nasty beast might go, wanton. Now, as you may think, this manner of the beast-man did shake my courage mightily, for I did think each time that it did go inward among the moss bushes that it had made discovery of me, and would make to take me in the back from out of the dark of the bushes. And this was an uncomfortable thing to consider, as others might think also, had any been there in the bush with me. And then, in truth, did that same swift sense of mine hearing prove helpful to my saving. For behold, the thing did go back into the moss bushes after that last coming out, and did seem to make as it had made a failing to discover me, and had no further intent save to return unto the night. And I had this thought truly in mine heart, and for maybe a minute, and then, lo, within my soul a voice did speak plain, and did warn me that the thing did make a great compass among the moss bushes about the fire hole, having made discovery of me, and it did go warily to take me in the back from the other side. Now, when I heard this voice speak within my spirit, I had knowledge that the dear Master Monstruaken made watch from the tower of observation, and did send the speech with his brain elements, having in mind that I had the night hearing, and I trusted the speech, for in the same moment of time there did beat all about me in the night the solemn throb of the master word, as that it had been added with speed to give instant assurance. And I leapt quick from that clump of the moss bush unto another, and crouched, and made a watch all about me, and kept the ears of my spirit open, knowing that the Master Monstruaken did also watch all for me. And suddenly I saw a little moving of a bush that grew to the back of those bushes in which I had been hid, and there came out of the bush that moved a great grey hand, and moved the moss of the clump where I had been, as it were, that something peered out of the moving bush, and there followed the great grey head of the grey man, and the head went into the clump of the moss bush where I had been. And I knew that I must strike now, and I leapt and smote with the discos, and the thing fell upon its side, and the great grey legs came out of the hither bushes, and twitched and drew upwards, but the head remained in the bush where I had been hid. And I stood away from the thing whilst it died, and in mine hand the discos did spin and send forth fire, as it were that it did live, and did know that it had slain a great and horrid monster. And presently the grey man was dead, and I went away from those bushes unto the far side of the fire hole, And I stood with the discos held high and spinning and sending out fire, that they within the mighty pyramid might know that I had slain the beast man, for it might be that it lay too much in the shadow for them to look upon. But the master monsterwaken spoke not again to me, for indeed it was not meet to do so, except it might save me from a sure danger. For as you may know from my past tellings, there were powers of the Night Land that did hearken unto such matters, and it was like enough that there had been overmuch done, even thus, for my further safety. Yet the thing could not be helped, and now that I was a little calmed and eased from my fear, I could know that all that the ether of the night was disturbed by the gladness of the millions within the great redoubt, so that it was plain how great a multitude had given note unto the fight, and their hearts to beat in sweet sympathy and natural fear, so that I did feel companied and befriended, though, as it may be thought, something shaken yet about the heart. Now in a little time I did gather unto me my wits, and had myself to order, and I looked to see how the hours did go, and I found that I had surely slumbered through 10 hours, and I reproached myself, for indeed I had slept over sound by reason of my having lacked a regular way and time, as I had with a proper wisdom made to be my rule, and I resolved that I would obey the wit of my reason in all the future time, and make to eat and rest in due season, as you will wot that I did before intend. Then, with a self-reproachful heart, I went around the small fire-hole, and caught up my cloak and other matters, and I turned me towards the mighty pyramid, and did look once upwards along all the great slope, where it did go measureless in to the far blackness of the everlasting night. And I made no salutation, for I had so resolved, as you will know. Moreover, I desired not to call forth any unneedful disturbance of the ether of the world, which indeed must be, did I make to stir the emotions of the millions. And I turned me then away, and went off into the night, going swift and cautious, and bearing the discos cunningly and almost, as it were, with a love for that strange and wondrous weapon that had so befriended me, and slain the foul grey man with one stroke. And I had feeling that it did know me, and had a comradeship for me. And I doubt none will understand this, save, it might be, they of the olden days that did carry one strong sword always. Yet was the discos more than the sword, for it did in truth seem to live with the fire and the flame of the earth current that did beat within it. And it was well acknowledged within the great redoubt that none might touch the discos of another, for that the thing went crustily, as it might be said, in the hands of a stranger. And if any made foolishness of this knowledge, and did persist much to such an handling, or making to use, the same would presently act clumsy with the weapon, and come to an hurt. And this was a sure thing, and had been known, maybe in Hun, dread 1,000 years, or perchance a greater time. And by this it doth seem wise to believe that there did grow always an affinity between the nature of the man, which doth, as ever, include the woman, and the discos that he did use in his practice. And because of this known thing, and that the place would elsewise be lumbered with olden weapons of those that did die, it was a law and usage that there was placed with the dead, the discos of the dead, there upon the last road in the country of silence, and was thus made to give back unto the earth current the power that did lie in it. And this doth seem to a careless thinker, as it were that I told once again those olden customs of the ancient folk. But this is otherwise, and had a sound reason to it. Yet if you do so believe, I doubt not but that a right human sentiment was something at the bottom, which is proper, for it is meet that love should mate with wisdom to mother comfort in our sorrows, and it is a warm thing to do aught for our dead, and none may say nay to this. Now, as I did go onwards into the night land, looking ever to this shadow and to that, it may be conceived how my heart would stir with swift fear at this and that my body would oft quiver to leap aside, and as swift discover that naught assailed. And so did I go forward, and always with imaginings and wonders concerning what manner of uncouth being or brute might come out of the darknesses all about. Yet, in all that time, there was a certain proudness of the heart, that I did come safe out of the power of the grey man, and did surely slay him. But truly it were well that the praise be considered, and not overmuch given unto me, For I had died as I slept, but that they of the great redoubt had made a watch over me, and waked me unto my saving. Now, presently as I walked, I grew something faint, and had knowledge that I did foolishly. For indeed I should have eat after my fight, yet may I be forgiven for this forgetting. In that I had been much shaked and put about. And I sat me down in a little clear place among the bushes, and did eat 3 of the tablets, and did once more shake forth the dust that did turn in the air to a natural water, by a proper and natural chemistry of these matters. And after I had eat, I sat a little while and did think, and did look upwards at the great slope of the pyramid in the night. And all the time did I listen with mine ears and with my spirit, and kept the discos across my knees, and looked this way and that very frequent, but nothing came anigh. And so I rose presently and went onwards, and walked for 6 hours towards the north and the west. And I made much to the west, for a little that I might come clear of the northwest watcher. Yet after a space I made to do foolishly, for I changed my mind about, and kept something more towards the north, so that I should have a surer sight of that monster. And this was, in truth, a rash and naughty thing to consider. For if I were but seen, then should that grim brute make a signal unto the evil powers, and I be met swiftly with destruction. But surely the heart is a strange and wayward thing, and given to quick fears, and immediately unto great and uncountable rashnesses. And so I did go forward unwisely to the northward of a safe and proper going, and it may be that an influence was upon me, and drew me thatwards. But who shall say? Now, a great time I walked, and made a halt upon every 6th hour, and did eat and drink, and look a little unto the Mons Strauss towering of the great redoubt, and afterwards make strong mine heart, and go forward again. And always I did go warily, and chiefly among the low moss bush, but sometimes out upon stony ground, and oft across places where sulphur did puff somewhat from the ground in a low smoke, very strong in the nostrils and not liked inwardly. And as I made onwards, I looked always to my right and to my left, and anon to the rear, yet made a constant observation of the mighty watcher, that I did begin to draw nigh unto, and oft did I stoop to crawl, and my hands did bleed somewhat. But after I was troubled so, I put on the great gloves that made complete the grey armor, and so was shod proper to such journeying. And presently, when 18 hours did have passed since that my sudden awakening to the peril of the grey man, I did search about for a place to slumber, for I would keep wisely unto my ruling, and go not over long lacking of sleep, and by this planning I should be the less like to sleep over sound, and so should set my spirit to listen whilst I did sleep, and by so much as my spirit should serve me with faith, should I have safety. And this thing is plain, and wants not more to the saying thereof. And I came presently unto a sudden place where the land did go downwards brokenly, as that it had been burst a great while gone by the inward fires. And I looked downwards over the edge of that place, and went round about it, and did see presently a ledge upon the far side, that was difficult to come upon, yet a place of some little safety to any that might go down to it. For it was awkward to see, and did any monster seek to come at me, I should have chance of warning, and might go downwards a greater way in time to my salvation. And by this determination I abode, and came down to that place with labor, but was cheerful of heart that I had found so sure a shelter. And I eat my 3 tablets, and drank the water that I did get from the powder, and so made to compose my body to sleep. Yet at this time a thought did come to me, and I made calculation afresh, and laughed somewhat at that, my poor counting. For indeed I had thought to eat but thrice in the 24 hours, yet by my arranging I was made indeed to eat 4 times, as you shall see immediately by a little thought. And this thing came more strong upon my spirit than any might think. For I did eat overmuch for the lasting of the food, though, in verity, it was but little to my belly, as you must all think, and have sympathy for my discomfort. And I considered a little, and had determined that I should afterwards in my journeying eat but 2 of the tablets to my meal. And this was a wise thought, and like much wisdom, a discomposing thing. But so it was, and I set it down that you may know the arranging of my ways at that time. Now, in all this while of meditation, I had been setting my cloak about me, and was fast set to my sleeping. For I had walked a weary way, and I lay me down upon my left side with my back to the rock, which did overhang me something above, so that I was contented to feel hid from things that might pass by in the night. And I had the cloak about me, and the discos close against my breast, within the cloak, and my head upon my pouch and upon my scrip. And as I lay thus a moment easeful, I could see that so mighty was the uprising of the great pyramid, that it was not hid from me even thus, but did stand upward into the night, and did shine, and was plain to be seen above the further edge of that deep place where I did lie. And I fell upon sleep, looking upward at that final light, where, as might be, the master monster waken did bend the great spyglass upon my lonesomeness, as I lay there upon the ledge. And this was a thought of sweet comfort upon which to slumber, the which I did. But my spirit lay wakeful within my breast, and did listen through the night, and harked for all evil matters and things that did make to come anigh. But also my spirit did whisper unto Nani as I went into sleep, and so passed I into dreams. Now it may be thought that I did act with a strange valiance, in that I composed my body so properly to slumber, and with but a little trouble of the heart concerning the coming of monsters. And in truth this hath seemed somewhat so to me, thinking since that time. But I do but set the thing that is truth, and make not to labor to an illusion of truth, and so must tell much that doth seem improper to the reality. Yet must all bear with me, and have understanding of the hardness of setting forth with true seeming the honesty of truth, which, in verity, is better served oft-times by timely and cunning lies. And so shall you understand this matter so well as I. And presently my spirit waked me there, in the half-dark of the night land. And I looked swift about me, and upwards, and saw nothing to fear. Then did I peer at my dial, and made to discover that I had slept full over 6 quiet hours. And by this I knew the reason of mine awaking. For it was so great pressed upon me by mine inward sense and being. And this you shall understand some ways, who have thought, ere sleep, to wake to a certain time of the morning. And by understanding shall you believe, and give me all your kind harking and human sympathy. And I made to have a smartness of going, which is ever hard to the newly waked. And I eat 2 tablets, the while my belly did cry out for an wholesome and proper filling. But I drank some of the water, and so did ease somewhat of my hunger. Then did I wind my cloak to its shape, and put upon me my gear, which was the scrip and the pouch, and the discos to my hip, and I clomb out from that place of rest. Yet, before I did come rightly up into the open, I peered about, and made some surety that no evil brute was anigh, and then I gat me out, and stood upon my feet, and looked for a little upwards at the mighty slope of the great redoubt, which did seem yet very nigh unto me, by reason of it being so monstrous in bigness. And I wondered whether in that moment the master monstruaken did look down upon me with the great spyglass. And afterwards I turned away swiftly, and went on into the night land, for it did always make me shaken with lonesomeness to look upon my great home. And so I did go forward with a strong and uncaring stride, but grew presently to quietness, and to have back the proper caution of my going. Yet had I not gone all foolishly, for I had taken the discos from my hip ere this, so that I possessed it handily. Now there is one matter which shall seem but a small and natural occurring unto you, yet was strong upon me in that time. And this thing was that I did begin now to see the night land from the new outlooking of my distance from the mighty pyramid. And it was as that a man of this day did go from the earth to travel among the stars, and lo, should he not find them to shift upon his vision, so that the great bear and this and that shaping of the star clusterings should make a new order as he did wander onwards, and so should he find that there was naught that was truly fixed, as he did before then think, but all to alter according unto the place whence the looking. And this thing shall be plain unto you, though no thought be put to the matter, for it is of an evident verity that doth need not argument to expound. And so shall you have memory of me, there a wander among those strange shapings, and one dares of that grim land, the which I had never but supposed to seem, but as my memory did retain them, from the lookings of all my life within the great redoubt. And so it was, and ever there did this thing and that open out to a new view, and the Nightland take to itself a constant new aspect to mine eyes, which had never until that time had but the one fixed vision of the same. And you shall understand with me how that when, about the 14th hour of that day's travel, I did draw very nigh unto the monstrous watcher of the northwest, it did seem so utter strange from this fresh aspect, that I had been like to think that I did see a new monster. For in truth, when I did come at last to creep to within a mile of it, among the low moss bushes, I was confounded that the mighty chin did come forward towards the great redoubt, even as the upward part of a vast cliff, which the sea doth make hollow about the bottom. For it did hang out into the air above the glare of the fire from the red pit, as it had been a thing of rock, all scored and be-weathered, and dull red and seeming burned and blasted by reason of the bloody shine that beat upward from the deep of the red pit. And by the way in which I do tell upon it, you shall know that I did surely view it something from the side at this immediate time, for in truth it was then that I did draw the nearer, and moreover, I was the more astonished at this viewing than I had been to the front, for it was so utter strange, and shapen so different from the brute that did hang in my memory. And a great time I did lie there upon my belly, and shaken by a fear of the beast, yet emboldened, as you may conceive, by having come to the side, and being hopeful in my heart that I was very secure within so great a shadow, and the thick shell tearing of the moss bushes. And surely it was that I did creep more nigh, the while that I did look, for presently I had a very plain seeing of the great monster, and did know where I had gotten to, and thereby did acknowledge unto myself that this was an utter foolishness, and like, for all that any might say, to lead unto destruction. Yet, as all must know, there was the first fear, and the ceasing of this fear, as I did wot that I was so little a thing to heed out there in the shadows, and presently a gaining of courage, and the prick of my being that did crave to see clear this exceeding wonder. And so was I come close, more or less, having gone far upon my hands and knees, yet sometimes to pause, but terwards on again. Now by this nearness, I was the more truly able to perceive how that the bulk of the watcher did rise up into the night, like a hill, and the color was mostly black, save and indeed where it did face to the red shine of the pit. And concerning this I have done telling. And so did I lie there, and stare a great while, parting a small hole in the moss bushes that I might spy through the same. And the thing was squat there, and might have root within the earth. So it did seem to mine imaginings, as I did stare with a dumb wonder. And there were monstrous warts upon the thing, and indents, and a mighty ruggedness and lumpings, as it were that it did be pimpled with great boulders that were bred within that monstrous hide. And where the shine from the pit of red fire did strike upon these, they did stand out into the darkness away from the skin, as you of this age shall see mountains of the moon catch a bright fire from the sun, and show plain upon the night of the moon. Now, as I have set down, I did lie there and look a great while, and it came presently to me that there was unease within the mighty pyramid, among the millions. For I did feel the ether of the world to be disturbed by their distress, and so had a knowing that they had a cunning wareness concerning the place where I did hide among the moss bushes. And the thrilling in the night did bring a wisdom into my head. For in verity, as I have said, this was a foolish matter that I was upon, and I gat a thought that the watcher might have an awareness of the trouble of the multitudes, and indeed, for all that I did know, it had a full knowledge of all my wandering. Though concerning this, I did think otherwise truly in my heart, as is a most human and proper way to make calm, fortable the spirit, where doubt can have no ease from reason. And I made that I would go backwards to a good distance from the watcher, and go forward again upon my journeying, if but that I come safe from so unwise an adventuring. And as I did begin to return, it was to me as that all my senses were newly awake, for I had a sudden knowing that I was within the atmosphere, should I not call it, of the monster. And I gat an abrupt and horrid shaking of the spirit, for I did feel in verity that my soul had come to an eye, and that the beast had a sure knowledge concerning me, yet did make to my destruction with no haste, but after that way and fashion that did seem proper unto it. And this feeling you shall understand the better, maybe, when I do tell that it was to me as that the air all about me was full of a quiet and steadfast life and keen intelligence, that I did believe to come forth from the watcher on every side, so that I did feel as one already within the gaze of some great and evil power. Yet, though I had a great terror upon me, I made no foolish haste, but commanded my soul to courage, and put a guard upon my way of going, and so made a very quiet journey for maybe 2 full miles, and afterwards did allow myself something more of haste, for I was now grown easier in my spirit, and felt apart from the spirit of the great watcher. And after a longer while, I did leave that hill of watchfulness to my rear, and was gone onward into the night, yet, as may be known, with a vague unease and trouble to my heart, and a swift and frequent turning to learn surely that no evil thing came after me. For, as you may know, I could nowise have forgetting, concerning that great quiet life which did seem to be living in all the air around that mighty bulk. For it had been all about me in the night, as I have told, and I to feel that I had been surely discovered, and thus shall you know how shaken was my spirit, in verity. Now, presently, at the 18th hour of that day's travel, I ceased from my journeying, that I might eat and drink, and I did sit a little while, and looked back upon the strange and monstrous thing which I had come beyond. And the great humped back and vast shoulders of the watching thing rose up into the night, black and cumbrous against the red shine of the pit. And thus, as you shall think, had that brute looked always unto the mighty pyramid, through eternity, and did cease not from watching, and was steadfast and silent and alone, and none did understand. And after I had eat and drunk some of the water, I went on ward for a full matter of 6 hours more, being minded to have no sleep until I had put a great way between me and the watcher. And in this part of my journey did I come to the place where the Silent Ones kill, as it was named in the maps. And I observed a very wondrous caution, and went away from it a little unto the north, where I did see at a distance the shinings of fire holes, the which did promise me warmth through my slumber. And here you must know that the place where the Silent Ones kill was an utter bare place, where all did seem of rock, and no bush did seem to grow thereon, so that a man might not come to any hiding, though in truth there might be some hole here or there. Yet was none shown in any map within the pyramid, neither did there seem to be any such to me, as I did creep there among the moss bushes to the northward of the place, and look constant and fearful towards it, so that I should see quickly whether any Silent One did move across all the grey quiet of that rocky plain. And concerning this same place where the Silent Ones kill, it were well to make an explanation how that there was always a little and far-spreaded light over all that lonesomeness, and the light was something grey seeming, as it were that a lichen might grow upon the rocks, and send out a little uncomfortable glowing, even as certain matters do in these times, if you do but know the place and the time to seek them. Yet was the light exceeding weak, and very cold and dismal, and did seem truly to show naught with a sureness, so that it did appear to the eye, if one did look fixedly, that there were shadows that did move here or there as it were of silent beings, and none might know in truth whether this shaping of the grayness was to the clouding of the reason, or that the eye did see of reality. Yet if one did look with the great spyglass, then might there be some surety and plainness, and likewise was it so, if one did have come sufficient an eye to that uncomfortable place, even as I then did be. And so you shall conceive how that I did slide very quiet from bush unto bush. For I had alway in all my life had a very dread fear of this place, and oft did I peer out into the dim grey light of the lonesome plain unto my left, and would think sometimes to perceive the shapes of the Silent Ones stood vague and watchful, yet on the instant to see nothing. And thus I did go onward, and came presently to a part where the grey plain did stretch out a bareness into the night land to my front, so that my way ended, unless I did make a long passing roundabout. And I sat there among the moss bushes, and did consider, and looked out cunningly through a spy hole of the bush in which I did sit. And I perceived that the part of the plain which did jut bareness into the land before me had no greatness of size, but might be passed swiftly in but a little running. And this thing should save me a wearisome going round, so that I made to consider it with a serious mind. And all the time did I search the bare grayness before me, and saw presently that it was surely empty. And I made to adventure myself across, running very swift until I had come to the far side. And lo! As I did go to rise up out of the bush, mine eyes were opened as it were, and I saw that there was something amid the constant grayness. And I fell quickly into the bush, and did sweat very chill, but yet did haste to look. And I saw now that there were, in truth, matters that did show vague upon that part of the plain that was before me, and I did peer very constant and anxious. And behold, I saw that there was facing me a great line of quiet and lofty figures, shrouded unto their feet, and they moved not, neither made they any sound, but stood there amid the grayness, and did seem to make an unending watch upon me, so that my heart went unto weakness, and I did feel that there was no power of the moss bushes to hide me. For in verity, they that stood so silent were certain of the silent ones, and I was very nigh to the place of destruction. Now I moved not for a time, but was made stiff by the greatness of my fear. Yet I was presently aware that the silent ones came not towards me, but stood quiet, as that they did mind not to slay me, if but I did keep from that place. And there grew therefrom a little courage into mine heart, and I obeyed my spirit, and took an hold of my strength, and went slowly backward in the bushes. And presently I was come a long way off, yet troubled and disturbed, and very strict to my going. And I made a great circling about that place where the plain of the silent ones did come outward, and so did gain to the northwest, and was thence something the happier in my heart, and went easily and oft upon my feet, yet making a strong watching to every side. And so I came at the last to a time when I had walked through 24 weariful hours, and was eager that I should come to a safe place for my sleep, yet did lack a happy belief of safety, in that I had come twice anigh to so grim trouble, and unsure I was that I did not be secretly pursued in the night. And this you shall believe to be a very desperate feeling, and a plight to make the heart sick, and to long with a great longing for the safety of that mine home. Yet had I put myself to the task, and truly I did never cease to the sorrowful remembering of that utter despair that had sounded to me plain in the last calling of mine own love, out of all the mystery of the night. And but to think upon this was to grow strong in the spirit, yet to have a fresh anxiousness that I did the more surely keep my life within me, and so come to that made salvation. Now, as you shall mind, I had spied the shine of certain fire holes somewhat to the northward, and had thought to make thereabouts a place for my sleep, for in truth there was a bit turness of cold in all the air of night that did surround me, and I was warmed nigh to a slow happiness by thinking upon a fire to lie beside, and small wonder, as you shall say. And I made presently a strong walking unto that place, where did glow in the night the shine of the fire holes, as I did well judge them to be, and so was like to have come over swiftly upon my death, as you shall presently see. For as I came anigh to the first, I perceived that the light came upward out of a great hollow among the moss bushes, and that the fire hole burned somewhere in the deep of the hollow, so that I did but look upon the shine thereof. Yet very eager was I to come to that warmth, and I made more of haste than care, as I did hint, and so came very swift to the top of the hollow, yet was still hidden by the kindness of the moss bushes. And as I made to thrust forward out of the bushes, that I might look and go downward into the hollow, there rose up to me the sound of a very large voice, and deep and husky. And the voice was a dreadful voice that did speak as that it said ordinary things, and in a fashion so monstrous as that it were that a house did speak. And in verity, this is a strange thing to say, yet shall it have the truth of my feelings and terror in that moment. And I drew back swiftly from discovering myself, and was then all feared to move, or to make to go more backward, lest that I should give knowledge that I was come anigh. And wise did I shiver lest that I was even then perceived. And so shall you have something of the utter fear that did shake me. And I abode there, very quiet, and moved not for a very great space, but did sweat and shake. For there was a monstrous ridness in the voice that did speak. And as I crouched there within the moss bushes, there came again the large voice, and it was answered by a second voice. And thereupon there arose, as it did seem, the speech of men that must have the bigness of elephants, and that did have no kindness in all their thoughts, but were utter monstrous. And the speech was slow, and it rose up out of the hollow, brutish and hoarse and mighty. And I would that I could make you to hear it, and that you could but borrow mine ears for a little meant, and forthwith be shaken with that utter horror and an afraidness, even as was I. Now presently there was a very long quiet, and I ceased at last a little from mine over fear. And later I did calm somewhat, so that I made to shift my position, which was grown very uneasy, and there was still no sound from the hollow. Wherefore, having a little boldness and much curiousness, and these des piqued my great fearfulness, I put forth mine hand, very cautious, and did move the moss bush a little from my face. And I went forward upon the earth, and did lie upon my belly, and was by this so close upon the edge of that place, that I was able to look downwards. And you shall know that I peered down into that great hole low, and did see a very strange and horrid sight. For in truth, there was a large fire hole in the center of that place, and all about the sides there were great holes into the slopes of the hollow, and there were great men laid in the holes, so that I might see a great head that did show out to my sight here, from one of those holes, and would seem to be that of a monstrous man heavy with sleep. And there I would see but the buttocks of another, as that he did curl himself inward to his brutish slumbering. And so was it all about, and to my memory there were maybe a score of these holes. Yet had I not time to the counting, as you shall see, for after that I had made but a glance, as it were, at these sleeping and utter monstrous men, I perceived that there sat beyond the fire hole 3 great men, and they were each greater than elephants, and covered a large part with a stiff and horrid hair, that did be of a reddish seeming. And there were upon them great segs and warts, as that their skin had been hides that had never known covering. And there was between them the body of a mighty hound, so big as an horse, that they did skin. And I judged that this beast was one of those fearsome brutes which we did call the night hounds. Yet, as I should set down, they did nothing in that time in which I looked at them, but did sit each with a sharp and monstrous bloody stone in his fist, and did look to the ground, as that they heeded not the earth or the food that they did prepare, but did listen to some outward sound. And you shall know that this brought to me a very swift and sudden terror. For I perceived now the why of their long silence, for in verity they had an unease upon them, being subtly aware that one was anigh, even as are the brute beasts in this manner and kind, as all do know. And I made to draw back, and win unto safety, if indeed this thing were to be done. And as I moved me, it may be that I shook a little earth into the hollow, for there was, indeed, a little sifting of dry dust below me, as I did wot, being very keen to hear, by reason of my fright. And immediately did those 3 monstrous men look upward, and did seem to me to stare into mine eyes, as I did lie there hid amid the moss bushes. And I was so put in fear that I did clumsily, and sent another siftering of dust downward, as I did strive to go backward swift and quiet from the edge. And all the time I did look through the bushes very fixedly into the eyes of the giants, and lo, their eyes did shine red and green, like to the eyes of animals, and there rose up a roar from them that did nigh slay my soul with the horridness of the noise. And at that roaring, all the giants that did lie in the holes did awake, and began to come outward into the hollow. Now I was surely lost, and given over to destruction, for they had possessed me immediately. But that in that moment, as I went backward, the earth gave behind me, and I fell into a hole among the moss bushes to my back, and I made first to come out very hurried, and all choked with a dust of sand and ash. But in a moment I was sane to know that I had come to a sudden hiding place, and I lay very still and strove neither to cough nor to breathe. And well for me I came to so close a hiding, for there were all about me the sounds of monstrous foot, steps, running, that seemed to shake the ground. though maybe this to be an imagining bread of my fear. And shoutings of great voices there were, and the thudding of huge feet all about, and the noises of the bushes rustling. But presently the search drew away to the southward, and I perceived that there had surely fought for me some power of good fortune. And I came up out of the hole, very cautious, and shaken and a moment weak with the beating of my heart, yet with a lovely thankfulness for my salvation. And I gat me about, and went swift through the moss bushes to the north and west for 3 hours, and ceased not to run upon my hands and knees. And by that time was I come a great way, and did have a surety in my heart of present safety. And I ceased to run, and lay quiet, for in truth I did near swoon away with the hardness of my travel. And indeed, as you shall know, I had slept not for 27 hours, and had scarce ceased to labor in all that time. Moreover, I had eat not, neither drunk, for 9 hours. And so shall you conceive that I was truly aweary. And presently I did slumber there as I lay, and all abroad to any monstrous thing that should come along. Yet did I wake unharmed, and found by my dial there had gone by a full 10 hours, the while that I did lie there, and sleep unwotting. And I was sore perished with the cold of the night, for I had not the warmth of my cloak about me, and my belly was very empty. And I stood me up, and did peer about for any dread matter, but all seemed proper, and I began to stamp my feet against the earth, as that I would drive it from me, and this I do say as a whimsy, and I swung mine arms, as often you shall do in the cold days. And so I was presently something warmed, and I dismantled my cloak, and wrapped it about me, and did feel that the discos was safe to my hip. Then did I sit me down, and did glow a little with relish, in that I should now eat 4 of the tablets, for indeed these were my proper due, by reason of my shiftless fasting ere I came so wotless to my slumbering, and the memory of that eating doth live with me now, so that I could near to smile. For the eagerness of mine inwards was proper and human, yet were even 4 tablets but a little matter to so great an emptiness. And I drank a double portion of the water, that I might make less the void. And this thing was seemly, for indeed there were 2 portions due unto me. And when I had eat and drunk, I did fold the cloak once more to shape across my shoulder, as I did carry it. And afterwards I took the discos into my hand, and went forward again to the north and west. Yet, as you shall know, I did pause a little in the beginning, and peer to every side for any close danger, and then did look more abroad of that place, but could nowhere see any matter to have me to immediate fear. And afterwards I looked a little while at the monstrous humped back of the watcher of the northwest, and it did grow to me how steadfast that thing did look toward the mighty pyramid. And this set me to new hatred and horror of the monster, as you shall conceive and believe. And presently I looked beyond the watcher, unto the vast mountain of the great redoubt, and I was still seeming close upon it, yet in truth gone a long and weariful distance, but this you shall understand was by the greatness and utter height and bulk of that shining mountain of life. And strange and wonderful it was to me to think that even in that one moment it might be that the dear Master Monstruaken did look upon my face through the great spyglass, and I should not seem utter far to him by reason of the power of the big glass. But to me, as I did look upward through the night, unto that far and utmost light in the upper blackness of the everlasting gloom, it did seem doubly to me that I was afar off and lost forever from mine home. And this thinking did breed in me such a great and lonesome feeling, and a weakness of the heart and spirit, that forthwith I took my courage close unto me, and did turn away quickly, and went onward to the north and west, as I have told. Now I walked for 12 hours, and in that time did eat and drink twice, and made onward again very steadfast, and happy that all did go so quiet with me, so that it was as if I had at last come to a part of the land that was given over to quietness, and lacking of monsters. Yet in truth was I come to a worse place than any may be. For as I went forward, striding very strong, and making a good speed, I did hear presently a little noise upward in the night, and some ways unto my left, that had seeming as that it were a strange low sound that did come down to me out of an hidden doorway above. For indeed, though the sound did come from very nigh, as it did seem no more than a score feet above my head. Yet was it a noise that did come out of a great and mighty distance, and out of a fore-ain place, and I did know the sound, though never, as you may suppose, could I have heard it in all my life. Yet had I read in one of the records, and again in a second and a third, how that certain of all they that had adventured from the pyramid into the Night Land to seek for knowledge, had chanced to hear a queer and improper noise above them in the night, and the noise had been strange, and did come from but a little way upward in the darkness, yet was also from a great and monstrous distance, and did seem to moan and hum quietly, and to have a different sounding from all noises of earth. And in the records it was set forth that these were those same doorways in the night, which were told of in an ancient and half-doubted tale of the world, that was much in favor of the children of the pyramid, and not disdained by certain of our wiser men, and had been thus through all the latter ages. And I did seem to know the sound upon the moment, for my heart grew swift to understand, and it was a very dread, uncomfortable sound. And you shall know how it did seem, if you will conceive of a strange noise that doth happen far away in the country, and the same noise to seem to come to you through an opened door near by. And this is but a poor way to put it. Yet how shall I make the thing more known to you, so that I must even trust unto your wit and true sympathy, that you shall conceive of the fullness of my meaning? Now, in all the histories of those that had adventured into the Night Land, there were but 3 sure records that did concern this sound, and each did tell of a great horror, and of them that did hear the sound there had died the most part, out in the Night Land. And the records did make always that they had come upon destruction, and not simply unto death, but were destroyed by a strange and invisible evil power from the night. And of those that came alive unto the pyramid, they had all one strange tale to tell, how that there were secret and horrid doorways in the night, yet how this thing could be plain to them, who may know truly, save it be that the eyes of their spirits did behold that which was hid to the eyes of the flesh. And there was afterwards writ a proper and careful treatise, and did set out that there did be ruptures of the ether, the which did constitute doorways, as those more fanciful ones did name them. And through these shatterings, which might be likened unto openings, there being no better word to their naming, there did come into this particular condition of life those monstrous forces of evil that did dominate the night, and which many did hold surely to have been given this proper entrance through the foolish and unwise wisdom of those olden men of learning, that did meddle overfar with matters that did reach in the end beyond their understanding. And this thing have I told before, and it doth seem proper unto my belief. For it is always thus, and I have that same taint within me, as must all that have the zest of life. Now by this that I have set down swiftly, to make a little clear the sure horridness of this sound, you shall know even with me the great horror that did come immediately upon my spirit. And I did know that my search was surely like to have an end in that moment, and I bared mine arm for my teeth, where the capsule did lie below the skin, and so was ready to an instant death, if that destruction did come upon me. And in the same moment I did fall silent, inward among the moss bushes, and did begin to creep very quiet toward the right. For, as you will mind, I had heard the sound over beyond my left. And all that time, as I did creep, there was a great sickness upon me, and it did seem that my mouth had weakened unto water, so that I could scarce hold my teeth tightly from unseemly clitterings. And I crept always very silent, and did often stare quick and painful over my shoulder, upwards, and this way and that, but did never see anything, neither could I hear now the sound. And I went thiswise for a great hour, and was like to faint through the effort of my care and the soreness of my going. But upon the end of that long while, I grew something easier in the spirit, and did perceive that I was saved from the destruction that I had come so dreadful a nigh. And this thing, it may be, was because that I did chance to hear it, whilst yet it was beyond, and before I did come right unto it, to pass below. Yet may I be wrong in this thought, and do but make a guessing. But, as I shall here explain, after that time I kept mine ears newly keen unto hearing, and did chide my spirit, for that it had not taken account of that sound a great while earlier, Yet, as I did presently conceive, the spirit had no power to hear that thing, which was very strange, but truly so. Now, because that I went with a very wary hearing, I heard the sound once a far way off before me, and I hit upon the meant, and went backward, and after a while did judge myself to have come unto safety. And so it was, in verity, for I heard no more that time. And so did I come presently unto the 18th hour, and did eat and drink, and made me a place of slumber in a little hollow of a rock that stood upward out of the moss bushes. And I slept for 6 hours, and afterwards waked, and was come to no harm. And after I had eat and drunk again, I did look outward over the night land, and with particularness to that part that I did travel in, as it might be called, the yesterday. And I did observe it to be a very bleak and desolate country, and not given over to fire, or other warmth, nor to sulphur vapors, but to be very quiet, and with but a little light in all its breadth. And I could conceive that it was no place for anything of life to desire, but rather to avoid, and that country did seem to be yet all about me, for I was by no means come clear from it at that time, though northward there was a glimmer, as of fire holes, and beyond those, the strange shining of the plain of blue fire. And, after that I had thought a while, I did believe that I should meet no monster of natural life in all that country of Desolation, until I did draw nigh once more unto fire, and I conceived that this sound from out of the invisible doorways might yet trouble me. But whether the quietness of that part was because all of natural life did fear the sound, or because that there was neither fire nor warmth, I do not say, having no knowing in this matter, but may yet believe that it was to be laid to both causes, and this doth seem of common reason, as you shall agree. And when I had looked a while unto the mighty pyramid, which was now truly a great way off, for I had walked so many weary hours, I turned me once more to my journeying. And here let me observe that I had gone very far, yet not so distant as might be thought. For oft I did go less than 1 mile in an hour, or maybe 2 hours, having to be of great caution, and oft to hide, and to go upon my belly, or to crawl, all as might be. And further, as you may have perceived, I made not a straight forwardness, but did strike this way and that way, being very intent to escape the monsters and evil forces that were all about. Now, because that I believed that I traveled in a place where was surely to be discovered those strange doorways within the night, I made an especial care of my going, and did stop oft that I might listen and watch, and keep a very strict ward in all the night about me. Yet, as you shall see, this served not to prevent me from going forward into the fearfulness of that which did haunt all the void. For sudden, as I went carefully, I heard a faint humming noise come downward from the night, a little unto my rear, and the humming noise did grow more plain, as that a door were opened slowly above, and did let out that sound ever more loud. And surely, after I did hear that, I could not doubt that a door were opened upward there. For the noise did grow in such wise as you shall hear a distant sound come through, when a door truly is oped. For if the noise had been made just in that place, it had seemed to come from there. But this sound, though it did come through there, was as that it did come outward from some far lost and foreign eternity. And this I do struggle always to make plain. And you shall not blame me that I think overmuch upon it. For in truth there was an horror so wondrous and drear about it, that I can forget not, but do strive always that others should know with me that peculiar woe and terror that did haunt the night. Now, as you will see, I had in truth gone past the place where the doorway in the night did open, yet had come to no harm, but rather it did seem that it opened by chance, unwot, ting that I was anigh, or it may be that my quiet passing did disturb an evil power, so that it did even come to listen, or to make search. And all this doth pass through my brain, as I do write, and it doth seem to me that my thoughts are but the thoughts of a little child, before so great a mystery, and that I touch not even the edge and fringe of the truth with my thinkings, and so do cease upon them, and will but go forward so plain as I may with my telling. Now, as you may truly believe, when I heard that sound, and did understand that I had, in verity, come past beneath that place, I did surely sicken to an utter weakness of body and heart, though it was but for a moment, and then was I swift hid within the close shelter of the low and thick moss bushes. And I shook in all my being, and crept shaking upon my hands and knees, and did near totter to my face thrice, so weak gone was I in that moment of terror. And I did have a wickedness of forgetting in that time, for I bared not mine arm, to have the capsule to a readiness for my death, if that did need to be. And this was an abominable foolishness, and I do shake now when I think upon it. For death is but a little matter by the side of destruction, though in truth dreadful enough for all. Yet, as it did chance, no harm came to me, and I gat away, as that some wondrous power did cast a viewless cloak about me, that I might be utter hid. And oft have I wondered whether this was truly so, but have no knowing. And presently I ceased from fleeing, and had some calmness, and did eat and drink, and so came to the comfort of a firm spirit, the which had been sore troubled above all understanded causes by that horrid sounding upward in the night. And after that I had eat and drunk, I did rest a little, but afterward went onward to the northward, going towards that place where the fire holes did glimmer, the same being by this time no great way off. Then, as I did come anigh, I thought to hear once again the sound in the night, and I stopped very swift, and hid into the moss bushes, and did listen, but did hear naught, and so was hopeful that fancy did play upon me. Yet, because of this matter, I went upon my hands and knees for a good way, and so came at last nigh unto the shine of one of those fire holes, the which I did see for so long. Now, as you shall suppose, I went very cautious through the bushes unto that red shining fire, being careful, both that I did attract not any evil force that might listen in the night, and because that there might be some monster nigh to the fire hole. But presently, when I was come so that I could peer through the bushes, I did see a little fire hole set in a small hole low, and there did no thing seem to lurk anigh. And the sight of that warmth did cheer me, for it was long since I did have the comfort of such a matter. And when I had lain hid a while, that I might watch all about, I saw the place to be safe and quiet. And I went out from the moss bushes, and sat down a space from the fire, which did fill the pit in which it did lift and bubble. And the noise that it sent out was strange and slow, and it did seem to gruntle gently to itself in that lonesome hollow, as that it had made a long and quiet grumbling there, through eternity. And oft was it still, and made no sound, and again would give an odd bubbling in the quietness, and send off, as it did seem, a little smoke of sulphur, and afterward fall once more upon a quiet. And so I did sit there very hushed and restful, and the lonely nest did lie all about me, and the red shine of the fire hole did glow soft in the hollow, and I was glad to be quiet, for my heart was weary, and there was to my back a little rock that did jut upward so high as a man, and the rock was warm and pleasant to lean upon, and moreover did seem to guard me from behind. And there I ate and drunk, and kept very still, and so was presently rested. And this I did need, as you have perceived. For I was gone sudden weary of the heart, as I did say. And this might be because that I did never cease to have destruction over me to companion my way. Though as you will mind, I had been no more than 12 hours afoot since my last sleeping. Yet I doubt not you do understand. And presently my heart grew strong again within me, and I had a warmth in my spirit, and I got up from the earth, and stretched out mine arms. And I saw that my gear was safe upon me, and afterward did grip the discos, as it were newly. Then I went away from the fire hole, and climbed the far slope of the hollow, and went northward. And there were before me many of the fire holes, for I did perceive them to shine in the night for a great way, as it did seem that they were a path of red shinings that led me onward to the northwest of the light of the plain of blue fire. Now, I had a believing that I had come out of the country where did lurk those horrid doorways in the night, and I went not with so utter a weight upon my heart, and did feel that naught should come now upon the back of my neck, which had been an odd and troublesome fancy whilst that I did creep through that country of gloom. Yet, as you shall know, I went with no foolish confidence, but with a great caution, and mine hearing keen to hark, and a care to my steps, and did ever watch around me as I journeyed. And because that I went forward in this proper and sedate manner, I had great cause for a thankful heart, as you may perceive. For I had come after a long way to another of those hole lows, where did burn one of the fire holes, and I made a pause upon the edge of the hollow in which it did lie, and looked downward, keeping guarded within the moss bushes, where they grew anigh to the top thereof. But there was no living thing there to be seen, and I went downward, so that I should warm my body at the fire. And lo, as I stood upon this side of the fire hole and turned myself about, I looked presently more keenly to the other side, for the yellowness of the earth did seem a little strange in one place, but I could see with no plainness, because that there arose a glare from the fire against mine eyes, and I went round, that I should look the better, yet with no fear or thought of evil in my heart. And truly, when I was come upon that far side of the fire hole, lo, there was spread out in the yellow sand of that place a curious thing, and I went more nigh, and stooped to look upon it, and behold it moved. And the sand all about did move for a great space, so that I gave back very swift and swung upward with the discos. And strangely I heard the sand to stir at my back, and I looked round very quick, and the sand rose upward in parts, and sifted back, and there came to my sight odd things that did move and curl about. And immediately, before I knew which way to go, I knew that the sand did shift under my feet, and did work and heave, so that I was tottered, and was shaken also in the heart, for I knew not what to think in that instant. Then did I perceive that I was all surrounded, and I ran swift upon the heaving sand, unto the edge of the fire hole. And I turned there, and looked quickly, for I did not know what this new terror should be. And I saw that a yellow thing did hump upward from out of the sand, as it had been a low hillock that did live, and the sand shed downward from it, and it did gather to itself strange and horrid arms from the sand all about it, and it stretched two of the arms unto me. But I smote with the discos, and I smote thrice, and afterward they did wriggle upon the sand. But this was not the end, as I did hope, for the yellow thing arose, and ran at me, as it might be that you should see a spider run. And I did leap backward, this way and that, but the monster had a great swiftness, so that I did seem surely lost. Then made I a strong and instant resolve, for I perceived that I had no hope to slay this thing, save that I should come at it in the body. And I put everything to the chance, and made not to escape any more, but ran straight in among the legs. And there were great hairs, like to spines upon the legs, and these had pricked me to the death, but that the armor saved me. Now I had done this thing with a wondrous quickness, so that I was under the mighty arching of the legs before the yellow thing did wot of my intent, and the body was bristled with the great hairs, and poison did seem to come from them, and to ooze from them strangely in great and shining drops. And the monster heaved itself up to one side, that it might bring certain of the legs inward to grasp me. Yet in that moment did I smite utter fierce with the discos, thrusting, and the discos did spin, and hum and roar, and sent out a wondrous blaze of flame, as that it had been a devouring death, and it sundered the body of the yellow thing, and did seem as that it screamed to rage amid the entrails thereof. So wondrous was the fury and energy of that trusted weapon. And I was covered with the muck of the thing, and the claws upon the legs seized me, so that the grey armor did bend and crack to the might thereof, and I grew sick unto death with the pain within, but smote with the shining discos, using my left hand weakly, for my right was gripped dreadful fast to my body. And lo, I was sudden free, and a great blow did knock me far across the hollow, so that I was like to have fallen into the fire hole, but fell instead upon the edge, and came backward unto safety. And I turned me about, and the yellow thing did throw the sand all ways, as it did die, but had lost power to come upon me. And for my part, I lay weak upon the earth, and was no more able to fight, nor could I do more than breathe for a great while, but yet came presently to health, and made to examine my hurts. Then I saw there was no great wound anywhere upon me, but only an utter bruising, and I found upon my right leg that there was a sharp and hairy claw clipped about it. But the armor had saved me from harm of the horrid thing, so that I did but kick it free with my left foot, and thence into the fire hole. Now by this time that monstrous creature was dead. But I held off from it, and went upon the other side of the fire, for I was yet surely in horror of it. And I sat for a time and did think upon all matters that did concern me, and I saw that I should have not comfort of heart, until I was washed clean from the taint of the monster. And I gat me up wearily to go forth into the night again, that I should make a search for a hot spring, of which I had come past many. And I had oft found them to be nigh unto the fire holes, so that I was trustful that I should see one ere long. And lo! There was a little hollow just beyond, and scarce 100 paces off. And in the hollow there did shine 3 small fire holes, and there was a steaming puddle, as did seem, beyond the third of the holes. Now, before I adventured downward into this place, I went all about the topmost edge, and made a search of the moss, bushes about, but found naught that should scare me. And afterward I went all across the hollow, but did find no monstrous thing hid anywheres. Yet there was that in the place that discouraged me, and did keep me from stripping mine armour, so that I should bathe in the hot puddle. For I stepped upon a small serpent, and the same did lap about my leg, but could do me no hurt for the armour, which was a very blessed protection. And I freed myself from it with the handle of the discos. And because that I could not go naked to my cleansing, I tried first the hotness of the water, which was not over great, and afterward did take off the scrip and the pouch and the cloak, and laid them with the discos upon the edge of the warm puddle. Then I stepped into the water, and was immediately gone down, ward a great way, for truly it was no puddle as I had supposed, but a deep well, as you might call it, of hot and sulphury water. And this doth show how a man may act foolishly, even when he doth believe that he hath a great caution. And surely it is borne in upon me afresh that none should trust over freely unto unproven matters, the which shall you heartily agree with, but yet do as foolishly according to your lights and chair. Actors, and so shall you laugh not over hardly upon me. Now I had gone over the head, and surely I do not know what deepness was there. Yet, as you shall think, I stayed not to consider upon this matter, but made to climb out, and much shaken with my splutterings and the smartings of mine eyes. For truly the water was strong with sulphur matters. Yet very cleansing was it, as I did presently see, for there was no more any taint or horridness upon mine armor, or the flesh of my face or hands. And I took the discos, and washed it clean also, and then the cloak, and afterward the scrip and the pouch, and the bands of the same. And after I had done this, I was minded to dry myself by the little fire holes. But when I was come there, lo, maybe a score small serpents were about those places, and I was strongly pleased that I should keep away. Yet that I must warm and dry me in that desolate and bitter night land, you shall agree. And to this end, I put the scrip and the pouch upon me, and after, wards took the discos readily into my hand, and ran quietly to the hollow where I did fight with the yellow thing, and the cloak I bore in my left hand. Now, when I was gat there, I was truly glad to think that there were no serpents in that place, and because that I had slain the monster of the place, how should it be that any harm might come unto me? For truly, was it not like that a creature of such might should keep all that hollow unto itself, and slay any that did come therein, and thereby preserve that place from all other horror? Though surely until it did die and cease to be, there had been no call for any greater abomination. Now, all this did go through my brain, as I did sit to dry mine armor and my body and my gear, upon that side of the fire hole, which was away from the slain monster. And I made presently to think that this would be a sure and proper refuge wherein to sleep. For truly it must have gotten a place where none other creature should be like to come to work me harm. And it must be that you do all see with me in this matter, and commend me that I thought with properness. And so did I resolve that I put my disgust within my pocket, as we do say, and stay safe and quiet within that hollow. And this thing I did surely, and did eat and drink. And presently I went over to the dead monster, and made very sure that it was truly slain, which indeed it was. And after that I had seen to this matter, I returned unto the fire hole, and made a comfort-able place in the sand for my rest, for I was well dry by this, and I wrapped the cloak about me, and took the discos to my breast, for a sure companion, as it had truly proved in my need. And I could think almost that it did nestle unto me, as that it knew and loved me. But this thing can be no more than fancy, and I do but set it down as such, and that it doth show my feeling and mind at that time. Then, ere I did compose myself to slumber, I looked about me upward to the edges of the hollow, and I perceived that I was lost to the sight of the mighty pyramid. For I was come so far off that it looked not down from so wondrous a height, as you shall perceive. And moreover, the hollow was something deep. And afterward, as I lay my head back upon the scrip and the pouch, which were to me my pillow, I went to think a little upon Nani, as always I did in my constant journeying, yet presently I strove sometimes that I put her from my mind, that I should sleep, for a bitter sorrow and anxiousness was oft upon me when that I did think upon her. And this you may know, for truly I knew not what terror was come to her, afar in the silence of the night. And did I think overmuch, I should feel that I could have no calmness needful to sleep, but to need to walk forever until I died, which could not be long, and so should I make a foolishness of mine anxious journeying to do her true service, and to save her from destruction, if such did truly threaten, and I was soon gone over to sleep, and waked not for 7 hours, being much wearied by the fight and the soreness of my body, the which did put me into a great pain as I did rise up, ward from my slumber. But this was presently something less, and I eat 2 of the tablets and drank some of the water, and afterward did put my gear upon me, and went forward into the night, having the discos in my hand, and my heart was glad that I had come safe through the time of my sleep. Now I walked 6 hours, and did stop a little to eat and drink, and went on again. And it was in this second third of the day that I saw afar to my right 2 strange and wondrous men, and they did shine, as they had been made of a pale mist. And they came anigh, going very swift, and did seem as that they were maybe 40 feet high, yet having no thickness. And I hid downward into the moss bushes, and they passed me, so quiet as a cloud of this day might go, and did appear to be, if I did guess, but 100 fathoms off. Yet was this no sure thing, for their position had no more surety than shall a rainbow have in this age. And so they were gone onward into the night, and did seem to come out of the north, and they did appear not to wot of me, and whether they were harmful I know not, for they harmed not me. And I lay there in the moss bushes, until they were well gone away, and I had belief that they must be those same mist men that were told of in certain of the olden records, but were never seen anigh to the pyramid, though I had thought odd times to see men as of mist through the great spyglass when I was within the tower of observation, but they were always a mighty way off, and some would say it was but a bright vapor that did move, yet would others be in doubt. And so is it ever in such matters. And here let me take chance to say how that it is a hard thing to speak of such happenings to men of this age, and to make the truth proper unto them. And because of this, oft am I tempted to say no word upon many things that I did see. Yet must I tell my tale, or suffer from the weight of it within me. And so shall you hark to me and give me your sympathy and human understanding. And concerning these mist men, I have wondered oft whether they were the visible shape of some of those many forces that were abroad in the night land. For they did truly seem to me as that a thing of strange life were half shown to my human eyes. Yet I do not know, and am but telling of my natural thoughts and ponderings. Now, as I did say, those mist men were never seen nigh unto the pyramid, and were, as I did hint, always so far off that they were half given over to the fables of the olden days, in the beliefs of the peoples of the mighty redoubt, and set about with an halo of unrealness, for none within the great pyramid had ever beheld them with surety. And because that now I saw them anigh to me, it was borne in afresh upon my spirit how greatly I had wandered away, and how that I stood afar in the lonesomeness of that land of night. as it had been that a man of this age did wander amid the stars, and perceive a great comet to go by him very close. For then he should know in his heart how that he was far off in the void. And this I do say to you, that you may know what of the emotions of my heart in that moment. Yet, presently I shook free of my melancholy and lonesomeness, and rose up out of the moss bushes, and went onward. And as ever I thought much upon the maid that I did search for, yet strove to think quietly concerning her state. Else should I have turned to running, and wrecked my body before that I had gone any great way. And that day I passed 7 large fire holes, and 2 that were small, and always I came softly unto them. For there were oft living things about the warmth. And at the 6th fire hole I did see that which I did think to be a great man, that did sit to the fire, with monstrous knees drawn upward unto his chin, and the nose was great, and bent downward, and the eyes very large, and did shine with the light from the fire hole, and moved, watching always this way and that, so that the white parts did show, now this side and now that. But it was not properly a man. And I went away very quiet from that place, and looked oft backward, until that I was sure of safety. For it was a very horrid monster, and had that place to be for a lair, as I did judge from the smell thereof. And when the 18th hour was come, I looked about for a safe place to my sleep, and I kept away now from the fire holes, for I did always find the more life there. Yet when I came to my rest, I was lacking of warmth by reason of this care, and could scarce sleep at all because that I was so cold. Yet managed something of slumber after a while, but woke very stiff, and was glad to beat my hands and bestir myself, that I should come to some warmth of life. And after that I had eat and drunk, I put my gear upon me, and took the discos in my hand, and went forward again upon my journey. And here I should tell that I was come soon unto the northwest border of the plain of blue fire. And presently I was but a little way off from it, and did go direct to the north, so that the plain was always upon my right. Now this plain was a strange and fearsome place, as you shall see, for it was as that a blue void did rise upward from the earth in all the country of that plain. For surely the plain did not lumber with flame, but was hid with a strange and in-burning light, as of a shining atmosphere of a cold blue color. And it did throw no shore light upon the night land, as had seemed proper, but was a very dreadful, cold shining, as of a luminous and blue void. And the moss bushes grew nigh to the edge of the plain, and did show to me black and strange against that horrid gloom of light. And you shall know that I could not see into the plain, for it was as that the cold blue light was a void that swallowed all within it, and gave no power to the eye that aught should be perceived. And it stood between me and the mighty pyramid, and I could no wise see across. And I know not whether I do make all this matter clear unto you, for surely it is no easy task. And presently I had gone very quiet upon my hands and knees through the moss bushes, and I came near upon the edge of the plain, and hid there in a clump of the moss bush, and peered forth and harked. And I heard constant voices that did call to one another across the plain, as it were that strange peoples of spirits did wander within that blue shining, and did make a calling one to the other, and were all hid and held apart. And surely I could see naught, and did judge, as I have writ, that they likewise went blindly. And truly is this a strange matter to set out, and easy to think on with doubt. Yet as I did see, so have I told. For in verity, there were surely hidden peoples of spirits scattered and lost afar upon that improper plain. And you shall judge that I kept safe hid. For whether this might have any natural explaining, or whether it was a matter that did go utter beyond knowledge of man, I did not know. For surely in that strange land, it did like to be in horrid danger in any case, and whether of some monstrous creatures, or of the evil forces of the land, I did wisely to be away. And for 2 days I did make a safe coasting of the plain of blue fire, and did keep well off maybe 2 great miles, among the moss bushes. And I made a very good speed through the darkness. And at the 18th hour of each journey I made a place for my slumber, and the first I did manage under a thick bush, but the second was high upon the ledge of a rock that grew upward in the night amid the bushes. And save that I was bitter cold, there did no harm come to me. And in all that time of journeying, I had no sight of the mighty pyramid, for the blind shining of the plain of blue fire was ever between. Now there had been certain little matters in my journey beside the plain of blue fire, which I have not set down, for they were of no account, and do but repeat much that I have told before. And indeed, there was naught in that part of my journey, save that I did pass 19 great fire holes and 4 small, and did observe no life beside any, save about one of the great holes that there was no hollow around. And here I did happen to see some strange and ugly creatures so big as my head, that did have a look of the scorpion of this age, but proportioned more squat and thick. Yet, though they were naught to remark upon in that land, they had been but woeful bedmates to any man, as you may think. And you shall know how it gave a rest to my spirit, that I did go so long with no trouble of the monsters of the night, or the evil forces thereof. And I grew bolder to my journeying, and made ever a greater speed of going. And it was like that I took presently a less heed for my safety, which was a wrong and foolish state. Yet there came no harm unto me in all that part of my travel. Then, it was in the 16th hour of the 3rd day of my journey beside the plain, that I did come out beyond the end of it, and had fresh sight of the mighty pyramid, afar in the night upon my right. And I stopped there in a bare place among the moss bushes, and did in a weak moment hold up the discourse, so that I make a salute unto the pyramid, mine home, for truly was I so utter glad to behold it once more. And in a little while was I aware that there was a disturbance of the ether of the world all about me, so that it did seem that there had been one at the great spyglass to watch for my coming into their sight from behind the shining of the plain of blue fire. And it was like that news had gone downward through the cities of the great redoubt, so that they did print the word of it in the hour slips. And by this there would be many great mill lions thinking upon me, and a rushing unto the embrasures, that they might spy out at me. Yet I doubt that any glass might perceive me surely at so great a space, save the power of the great spyglass in the tower of observation, but the emotion of the millions to reach to me. And you shall know that it did seem homely and sweet unto me to hear all about me the shaking of the ether of the world, and to beware that so many did think humanly upon me, and had prayers unto my safety. And it was a strange thing to stand so utter far off in the night, and to look back to that everlasting hill of light, that was grown something small by the distance, and to have surety that I was looked upon through the great spyglass, maybe by the kindly eye of my dear friend, the Master Monstruaken, and so keenly that he could, it might be, make almost to guess the look within mine eyes, as I did gaze backward unto that mine home. Yet, though this dear and homely sympathy was a sweet and companionable thing to my heart, it came swift to my thought that I was in a sore danger, if that they ceased not quickly to think so only upon me. For surely was I not come over near unto that dreadful house of silence, and well might so much emotion of the millions tell unto the horrid power that dwelt within, how that I was even anigh. And so shall you see the mixed feelings that came upon me every way. Yet, as it did chance, the ether was quieted in a little, for it did need unity of the millions, being that they were untrained to their spiritual powers, to stir the ether, and so was I more easy of mind, and went forward again upon my way. Now, as it did chance, at the 18th hour, I was come to a place where I heard a noise of water, and I went to my left, that I might come upon it. And there boiled a hot fountain that went up out of the rock of that place. And the water rose up, warred in a column, and was, maybe, so thick as my body, and it fell unto the north, for the water came not up straightly, but did shoot out from the earth unto that way. And I saw the thing plain, for there were many fire holes all about, as you shall have wotted from my telling, and so was there a certain and constant light in that part of the land. And I followed the water that ran from the fountain, and tried it with mine hand, but found it to burn, and so did go fur there beside it, for presently it should be no hotter than I did need. And it went onward, winding among the moss bushes, and sent up a constant steam that hung about it. and the steam made a red cloud about the way that it did go, for the lights from the fire holes made a shining upon it, and so was it a wondrous, pretty sight. Now presently I tried the stream again, and found it to be nicely warm, and I sat upon a little rock, and took off my foot gear, that I might bathe my feet, which were gone something tender. Moreover, I did ache to have the sweetness of water about me, and I made that I should bathe my feet, and afterwards find a place among the moss bushes, and so eat and drink, and have my slumber. Then, as I did sit there beside that warm stream, with my feet dabbled therein, I heard sudden, afar off, the voice of a mighty night-hound, baying in the night, and the sound came from the northwest of the plain of blue fire. And there was afterward a quiet, and you shall see me sitting there upon the rock by the side of that smoking river, and the steam all about me, and my feet within the lovely warmth of the water. And I very still and frozen with a sudden fear, for it did seem to me, in an instant, that the night-hound might surely be upon the track of my goings. And after that there had passed a little time, the while that I did listen very keen, lo, there burst out in the night, as it did seem scarce a mile off, the monstrous deep baying of the giant hound. And I knew surely that the brute did track me, and a sick and utter horror did fall upon me, so that I could scarce get my footgear upon me once more. Yet in truth, I was not long to the matter, and was to my feet, and did hold the discos ready, and very desperate I was to the heart. For it is ever a fearsome thing to be put in chase, and the worse 100 times, when there is a sure knowledge that a deathly monster doth be the pursuer. Now, I did stand there but a moment it did seem, to make an anxious considering how that I might best assure me some chance to live through this swift coming danger. And then did I think upon the stream, to use it, and I leapt quick therein, and did run very strong down the middle part, which was nowhere so much as thigh deep, and oft not above mine ankles. And as I did run, there came again the bellow of that dire brute, following, and was now, as mine ears did say, scarce the half of a mile to my rear. And I did run but the stronger, for the dread of the sound, and so maybe for a little minute. And after that time, I stopped from mine heavy running, and went very wary, that I made no loud splashing. For by now the monster brute should be something anigh to that place where I did enter the stream. And I looked round with a constant looking, but did see no surely visible thing, though my fear did shape me and hound from every shadow of the moss bushes about me. Then, in a moment, I did hear the great beast, for it bayed but a little way up the stream, as that it had overshot the place where the scent did end. And immediately I sank swiftly into the water, which was there so deep as my knee, and turned upon my belly. And the water surged over my shoulders, for I kept my head above, and so I did look eager and fearful through the steam into the shadows and the half-darkness, towards where I did think to see the night-hound. And in a moment I saw it coming, and it was a little vague, by reason of the smoke of the river, yet did seem black and monstrous in the gloom, and great as a mighty horse. And it went past me at a vast and lumbersome gallop, but I did not see it in that moment, for I dived my head down unto the rock of the river bottom, and held downward, until that I was like to burst for sore longing of breath. Then I put upward my head, and took swift and deep breath, ings, and looked about me, very cautious and fearful, as you can know. And I heard the night-hound casting round among the moss bushes, and it did send up a wild and awesome baying. And I heard the bushes break and smash beneath it, as it did run to and hither. And afterward there was a quiet, yet I moved not, but stayed there very low in the water, and did have a thankful heart that it was warm and easy to persist in. For I had surely died of a frozen heart, if that it had been cold. For by this time you do know even with me, how bitter was the chill of the land. Now I had been a while lain thus upon my belly, and heard no sound from the monstrous hound. Yet I ceased not to be full of an horrid unease concerning the great beast, for I did better to know what it did than to have no knowing. And sudden I heard the sound of it, running very swiftly and coming nigh, and it passed me and did go up the stream. And there was surely a quick stupor upon me, for I ducked not my head under the water, but stayed very still, which as it did chance, was maybe not such an utter foolishness. For my head did seem in that half-gloom to be, mayhap, no more than a little rock in the water. And I made no move to tell of life. Yet should the hound have smelled me, and that it failed in this matter, doth be a puzzle to me. And as the great night hound passed me, it tore the earth and the bushes, with the exceeding strength that it put forth to run. And clods of the earth and stones of bigness were cast this way and that by the feet of the hound, running. And so shall you have a little knowledge of the strength of that beast. And the hound ran on into the distance, and presently I heard it baying in the night. Then I rose, and went onward, down the warm stream, and made a strong walking, yet keeping alway to the water, and oft did stop a little that I should listen. And always I heard the night hound a great way off in the night, baying, and seeming that it did surely run to and fro, searching. Now I journeyed thus for 12 hours, and the baying of the hound making search did never cease. And I kept always to the water, as I did say, that I should leave no scent unto the hound. And by that 12 weary hours had gone, I found that I was come anigh unto the house of silence. And this put me in great trouble, as you may perceive. For surely had mine whole effort been to the end that I should avoid that house by a great way, yet had the hound driven me thus anear. Now I saw that the small river did go onward, and did make a breach across the road where the silent ones walk. And I determined in my heart that I should leave the water, which was now grown nigh to a bitter cold, in that it was so long upon the face of the land. Yet chiefly did I mind to leave the water, that I should come no more anigh unto that house of silence, for the water did go that way. And I stood a while, and did listen for the baying of the hound, but could hear it no more, and did have a surety within me that it was indeed gone from searching for me. Then I came out of the water, and went forward, stooping and creeping, among the moss bushes, going outward to the westward of north, so that I should go away so quickly as I might from the nearness of the house. Yet lo, I was gone upon my hands and knees no more than 100 fathoms, when I did find the moss bushes to cease to the westward, for a great way, and there to be a great bareness of rock, which in truth was much shown thereabout, and I dared not to go outward upon that naked land. For then I had not been hid by the moss bushes, but had stood plain there for all things of the night to behold. And moreover, though I could nowise have a sure knowledge concerning this matter, yet did I hope within me that I should make a sure hiding from the power of the house of silence, did I but go very low among the bushes. But indeed, it was like enough that naught could give me hiding, yet should I lose no chance unto my safety. And because of this, I went backward among the bushes, and ceased to escape out unto the westward. And I found presently that the moss bushes made but a narrow growth in that path, and grew only for a while by the side of the great road, so that I was surely fain to keep nigh to the road, that I have the covering of the bushes. And in a while I found the road where the silent ones walk, to bend inward at the north of the house of silence, so that it came right horridly close unto the house. For here the hill on which the house did stand was very abrupt, and fell steeply unto the road. And so was that dreadful house stood up there above me in the silence, as that it did seem to brood there upon the land. And this side did seem truly as the other, and equal lone and dreadful. And the house was monstrous and huge, and full of quiet lights. And it was truly as that there had been no sound ever in that house through eternity. But yet was it as that the heart did think each moment to see quiet and shrouded figures within. And yet never were they seen. And this I do but set down that I bring all home unto your hearts also, as that you crouched there with me in those low moss bushes, there beside the great road, and did look up, ward unto that monstrous house of everlasting silence, and did feel the utterness of silence to hang about it in the night, and to know in your spirits the quiet threat that lived silent there within. And so shall you have mind of me, hid there among the bushes, and sodden and cold, and yet, as you will perceive, so held in my spirit by an utter terror and loathing and solemn wonder and awe of that mighty house of quietness, loomed above me in the night, that I wotted not of the misery of my body, because that my spirit was put so greatly in dread and terror for the life of my being. And also you shall have before you how that I knew in all my body and soul, that I stood anigh to that place, where but a little while gone there had passed inward so dreadful, to an everlasting silence and horrid mystery those poor youths. And after that you have minded you of this, you shall consider how that, the memory of all my life held dread thoughts of the monstrousness of that house. And now was I anigh unto it, and it did seem to my soul that the very night about it held an anguish of quiet terror. And always my mind did come back to the sheer matter that I was so anigh. And this thing I do say unto you once and again, for truly, as you do see, it hath printed itself deep into my spirit. Yet shall I now cease from saying further in this manner, for surely you shall never know all that was in mine heart. And if I cease not, I do but be like to weary you. And so did I hide and creep, and oft pause to a time of shaking quiet, and afterward gather something of new courage and go onward, and peer upward at that monstrous house, stood above me in the night. Yet, as it did come about, I came presently clear of that horrid place, for the road came round again unto the north, and I began that I made a better way through the moss bushes, but never that I grew to much speed, for I had oft to go about, that I should miss a naked part here, and another there, for truly there was an abundance and bareness of rock, so that the bushes grew not so thick as I could wish. And in the space of 5 hours was I clear of that house, and did have a greater ease about my heart, but yet was not free to come to food nor to slumber, the both of which I did sorely need. For I had slept neither eat for a weariful time, as you do know. But first I must go further off from the house, and afterwards come to some fire hole, that I should dry myself and get warmth again into my body, which was bitter cold. And now that I had come unto the northward of the house of silence, there came to me a great wonder, which bred in me a mighty hope and gladness. For as I did go among the bushes, there broke sudden all around me in the ether the low and solemn beat of the master word, and the throb of the word was utter weak, so that one moment I did say unto myself that I heard, and in a moment that I did not, yet had I no proper doubt in my heart. And I reasoned with myself, and with a great shaking of excitement and expectation upon me, that the master word came not from the great pyramid, which should have power to send it as a great force across the everlasting night, whilst that throbbed about me was faint and scarce, to be known even unto the keenness of the night hearing, which was mine. And immediately as I crouched low there, and thrilled with the hope that was bred in me, lo, there seemed to come the far faint voice of Nani, calling with a little voice within my spirit. And I thought the cry to have an utterness of supplication within it, so that I grew desperate to up and go to running, yet did curb such foolishness, and stayed very hushed to listen. But I heard no more, yet was shaken continually with the joy and hope which this calling did breed in me. For truly did it seem now that I was right, that I did determine to go unto the north. For sure was I now that the lesser redoubt lay that way in the night, and it did seem plain unto me that the house of silence had put a barrier between, and had power to withhold so weak a calling. And now had I come beyond the barrier, and I did perceive in my heart how that Nani had called off, maybe in the sadness of despair, yet had the weak crying of her brain elements been held from me by the horrid power of the house, and surely, as I did think, it was well named, for it did make a silence. And so shall you stay with me in your hearts, and take to ourselves something of the new gladness that held all my being. For it did seem truly that my bitter task and adventuring should not in the end be offered to uselessness, and that I did truly draw unto that far place in the everlasting night, where mine own maid did cry for me, that I should succor her. And ever as I went, did I hark. But there was no more the low eating of the master word in the night, not at that time. And presently I spied outward to the west, as it did seem a good mile off in the night, the shining of a fire hole, and I began to plan that I should come unto that place, and have warmth and dryness, and food and slumber. And in verity, so set was I to the need of these matters, that if there did be a monstrous thing nigh to the fire, as was so oft the case, then would I give battle unto it. For neither my joy nor my labors did serve to put warmth into my body, and I must surely come anigh to fire or die. Then, as I kneeled upward among the moss bushes, and made to lay a true course unto the fire-hole, I perceived that there came a being along the road unto my right, and I went low into the bushes, and moved not. For truly I had seen that there drew nigh one of the silent ones, and I made a little place that should let me to see, and I spied out with an utter caution, and lo! The being came on very quiet, and with no hurry, and in a time it went by me on the road, and did take no heed to me. Yet did I feel that it had knowledge that I stooped there among the moss bushes, and it made no sound as it went, and was a dreadful thing. Yet it did seem unto my heart as that it had no trouble of wanton malice to work needless destruction to any. And this I crave strangely that you to understand. For it was so to me that I had a quiet and great respect for that thing, and did feel no hatred, yet was very dreadly in fear of it. And it was huge in size, and was shrouded unto its feet, and seemed maybe 10 feet high. Yet presently it was gone onward down the road, and I was no more troubled by it. Then did I make no waste of time, but set off unto the fire-hole, and kept so much to shelter as I might, but was oft made to run over baked places, ere that I should come to more of the bushes. And I came presently nigh unto the fire-hole, and made a pause, and crept unto it, with a great care. And I found it to be in the bottom of a deep hollow of the rock of that part. And the rock was clear-looking of all living matters, the which did make me to be glad. And I went round about the top of the hollow, carrying the discos very handily, but there was nowhere any living thing. And I feared not to go downward into the deep hole low, and so unto the fire-hole, which lay in the bottom, as you have perceived. And when I was come there, I made a close search of the rock, and found it was very sweet and warm, and there were no serpents, neither any stinging creatures, so that a certain comfort came upon my spirit. Then stripped I off mine armor and gear, and afterward all my garments, so that I stood naked there in the hollow. Yet was that place almost so warm as some mild oven, and I had no fear to suffer from the cold of the night land, but was uneasy lest that any monstrous thing should be anigh to come to take me so unawares. Now I wrung the garments, and spread them upon the rock near unto the fire-hole, where it was hot. And I did rub my body very brisk with my hands, so that I glowed into health, and had no fear of a stiffness. And afterward I did look to my food and drink, and to the matters in the pouch. But there had no harm come to any, by reason of the tightness of the scrip and the pouch, that had kept off the water. And I eat and drank, there as I stood waiting for the garments to come to dryness. And I walked about a little as I eat, for I was restless to be into mine armor swiftly. And now I did turn this garment upward of the dry side, and now that, but did find them to steam, so that I turned them many times before they were proper. Yet in truth, they dried in but a little while, and I gat me into them very swift, and into the armor. And I felt the strength and courage of my spirit to come back into me, which had gone outward somewhat when I did stand there so naked. And this feeling you shall all have understanding of, and know that you would have felt that way. Likewise, had you but stood there in that land in so unhappy a plight. And when I had come into mine armor, I put my gear upon me and took the discos into my hand, and did climb out of the hollow, for I would find a more secure place to my slumber, and did not dare to sleep in that place. For it was beyond 37 hours since that I did have sleep, though as I do see by my count, I have made it to seem but as 35, yet was a part consumed in diverse matters that I have not set down. And you shall mind how bitter had been my labor and weariness in all that time. And I did know of a surety that sleep must come heavily upon me, so that I was sorely in need that I should search out a safe place, for I should not be lightly waked. Until that I had slept away the tiredness of my heart, and the weariful achings from my body. And indeed, I should mind you how that I was not yet come perfect from the bruising, which I had gotten from the fight with the yellow thing. And presently, when I had searched but a little while, I did find that a rock stood upward from a great clumping of the moss bushes unto my left, and I went over to the rock and made a search about it. and I found that there was a hole into the bottom part of the rock, and I thrust the discos into the hole and made the blade to spin a little, so that it sent out a light. But there was no thing in the hole, and it did seem a dry and safe place for my sleep. Then I turned me about and went into the hole with my feet that way, and I found that it was so deep into the rock as the length of 2 men, and just so wide as I could lie in it without having it to pinch me. And there I made my bed in the hole, and went swift unto my sleep, and scarce had but a moment even to think upon Nani. And by this thing shall you know how utter was my weariness. Now I waked of a sudden, and was very clear and refreshed, and I crept to the mouth of the hole and looked out. But there was all a quietness round about, and nothing to threaten. And I found that I had slept 10 hours, so that I made a haste to eat and drink, that I should go forward swiftly upon my journey. And at that time, as in the time when I did eat, naked, in the hollow, by the fire hole, I eat 4 of the tablets, and this you shall understand to be rightly due unto me, in that I had gone so long fasting in that my great journeying to come safe from the hound, and to come past the house of silence. And this shall seem but a little thing to you. Yet was it a wondrous important matter unto me, that had gone so long with an empty belly, and was never satisfied, and neither should any be, that had eat so little as I did eat, and made to fill their belly always with a drink of water. Yet I doubt not, but that it did keep my soul sweet and wholesome, and no useful thing to the powers of evil of the land. And when I had made an end of so great a gorging, and had ceased to be drunken with water, I gat my gear upon me, and took the discos into mine hand, and so went forth once more towards the north. And presently I was nigh unto the road again, for it did curve something westward a space beyond. And I was sore tempted to go upon the road, for the ground was rough, and the moss bushes did catch my feet. Yet did I stay among the bushes, though the road was true and smooth by compare. And by this telling, you will perceive that I walked once more upright, and had given over to crawl between the bushes. And in truth this was so, for the land did seem very quiet in all that part, and I had less of fear, now that I stood beyond the horrid unease of the house of silence. Now, after that, I had journeyed 12 hours. I saw that I was come upon the commencement of a great and mighty slope, as that the world did slope downward always towards the north. And I went on again. After that, I had eat and drunk, as I did likewise before this at the 6th hour of that day's journey. And presently I perceived the road to cease. And surely this did confound me, as that a man of this age had come to a part where the world did end. For you shall know that the road was that which had seemed to go on forever, and you shall mind the way of my life up till that time. And so shall you the better conceive of my bewilderment, and as it were a feeling of great strangeness unto one that was overpressed, as you would believe, with strange matters. Yet truly was this all as the little book of metal had told unto me, and so should I have been something prepared. Yet are we ever thus needing eye-proof, and perhaps it is more proper that it be so. Yet you shall perceive me adrift somewhat, as to direction. For I had steered before this time so that I should come to the north of the house of silence, and afterward had shaped my way by the road. But now was I adrift, as it might be set down, in the wilderness. And so did I stand and consider, and presently did look unto the far pyramid, which was now a great way off in the night, and had seemed but small by that which I knew it to be. And lo, as I did look, I perceived that I could but see the high upper point of the light of the great pyramid, where did shine the last light, and I was confounded afresh. Yet in a moment I saw that the greatness of the slope did account for this. But here I should tell to you that the slope was no wise steep, but did seem as that it should never cease. And mayhaps this is clear unto you. And I perceived surely that the time was come when I should make an utter parting from the great redoubt. And the thought came very heavy upon me, and in the same time I knew that the ether was stirred by the emotions of the mill lions, so that I had knowledge they watched me with the great spyglass, and did send word down unto the hour slips. And by this did the millions know, and have a great thinking upon me in that moment. And you shall perceive how utter lost and lonesome I did feel. And it was at that time that I did test the compass, to comfort me, as I did tell before this, and feared I must sure forget when I did come to the proper place. Yet have I minded me, as I did desire, and I saw now that the night land that I did wot of was hid from me by the slope. And I turned and looked down the slope, and surely all before me was utter wildness of a dark desolation. For it did seem to go no whither, but into an everlasting night. And there was no fire down there, neither light of any kind, but only darkness and, as I did feel, eternity. And downward into that blackness did the great slope seem to go forever. Now, as I did stand there, looking downward into the dark, and often backward unto the shining of the final light, and put to a horrid desolateness, behold, there came the low beating of the master word in the night, and it did appear as that it had been sent to give me courage and strength in that moment. And did seem unto my fancy that surely it did come upward unto me from out of the mighty blackness into which the great slope ran. Yet could this have been but a belief, for the ether doth have no regard unto direction, to show you whence the spiritual sound doth come. And this did my knowledge and reason know full well. And I made that I would send back the master word, sending it with my brain elements, and so give news unto Nani, how that I did struggle to come unto her. Yet did I have caution in time, for in verity, had I sent the master word, then had the evil forces of the land wotted that I was out, and mayhaps had come swift unto my destruction. And so did I contain my spirit and desire, and made to do wisely. Yet was I put in courage by the low beat of the master word, and did listen very keen, that some message should follow. But there came none, neither did the weak throb of the word come about me again, at that time. And because that I was now grown more to my natural state, and did feel that I should indeed find the maid, I looked once more unto the great pyramid, long and eager and with a solemn heart, yet with no sign or salutation, as I was before determined, and afterward I turned and went downward into the dark.